Earlier today, we heard from Russian President Vladimir Putin in his first major news conference since he invaded Ukraine nearly 2 years ago. With Western media there in attendance, the Russian leader confidently predicted that Russia will outlast Western support for Ukraine.
Today, Ukraine produces almost nothing. They're trying to preserve something, but they produced almost nothing. They get everything, excuse the bad manners, for free. But this freebie may end someday, and apparently it is ending.
This highly choreographed call-in show from the Kremlin lasted over 4 hours. It ranged from acknowledging for the first time an American journalist who is wrongfully being held in Russia to the price of eggs. Joining me here tonight, Time correspondent Simon Schuster, who covers Ukraine and Russia, also the author of The Showman Inside the Invasion That Shook the World and Made a Leader of Volodymyr Zelensky. Thank you for being here. I mean, to listen to this marathon press conference, obviously one of the biggest takeaways as we're watching this fight in Washington over funding for Ukraine is he very clearly thinks that it's about to be over.
He does, yeah, and it was a very confident Putin. I think he has reason to be pretty sure of himself. But what I took away just watching the events today was this amazing split screen. With Putin on the one hand, trying to get across to his people that we need to be in this war for the long haul. We're facing the West. We're in a kind of existential battle with the West, and preparing them for a kind of forever war, an almost cult of war. And then on the other hand, you had President Zelensky able to tell his people, look, the European Union is opening membership talks with us. So I think the visions that the two leaders today presented to their people were so dramatically different. One is able to tell his people, at least, look, at the end of this long, horrific war, we do have an opportunity to live in prosperity with the European Union. They are opening the door to us. And Putin is only talking about continued confrontation with the West. And any time that he sees a bit of reason to feel confident, he continues to go back to these really dramatic stakes, really dramatic demands of swallowing basically all of Ukraine, demilitarizing Ukraine, and confronting the West for years and years to come.
Yeah, as he's talked about, we've heard Republicans talking about a negotiated settlement. I mean, he made clear he's not looking to make any concessions. The other interesting moment was where you saw, two Putins on screen. There's been all these questions about his health, whether or not he uses a body double, which obviously was something that he was trying to reference. I mean, what did you make of him showing this, the real Putin on the left and then the AI generated version on the right? I mean, he's clearly trying to say, I'm not using a body double. I'm in good health. I'm fine.
Yeah, it's a bit of trolling. I think, the idea that he uses a body double, or that he has cancer or some other grave illness that he might soon croak, and then this whole war will be resolved by itself. I think it's a fanciful topic. It's often discussed in the kind of in Ukraine, in the Ukrainian blogosphere. I think he was just trying to point out that, no, people, I'm in this for the long haul. Don't count on me to kind of step aside or get ill or fall away. I'm going to keep fighting you every chance I get.
For the first time, we saw him acknowledge that they are holding Evan Gershkovich. And, it's been 260 days now that the Wall Street Journal reporter has been being held. He said that there's a dialogue between U.S. officials and Russian officials, but talked about it being a challenging conversation. What is that? How do you read into that? What does that mean, do you think?
Well, I'm really glad that my colleague from the New York Times, Valerie Hopkins, was able to put that question to him, to his face, and make him speak on that issue. I think we're all really concerned about Evan Gershkovich and the negotiations to release him. I think the way Putin answered it gave me the sense that he kind of enjoys, at least on this issue, being able to needle the United States. The United States wants something from him. They want Evan to be set free, as he should be. And Putin seems to be in no hurry to release him. Apparently, he enjoys having these kinds of negotiations and debates with the United States, haggling over hostages and so on. This is a place he feels comfortable.
And not just him, Paul Whelan as well, who was obviously also brought up in that. Simon Schuster, can't wait to read the book. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve Hall's a CNN national security analyst and former CIA chief of Russia operations, and he joins us now. Steve, great to have you back on the show. I mean, let's start off with the fact that he brought it back. He brought the conference back, the end of year conference back after 2 years.
In Washington, there is potential progress this morning in a Senate deal on immigration reform. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced the chamber will delay its holiday break and return next week to try to hammer out a deal on the border. Something Republicans say is crucial to winning over their votes to pass more funding for Ukraine and Israel. Chief Democratic negotiator Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said negotiators will work through the weekend, but Republican Senator Lindsey Graham was dismissive about a possible deal, and House Republicans also were skeptical.
They haven't written anything down. We've been doing this for 90 days. There is no legislative text. The White House just got involved 3 days ago. You expect to, to run out the clock and get it done. I look forward to voting no to a bad deal next week. I am not going to be pressed to do something that doesn't make sense.
Our position in the House has been clear from day one: secure the border. We've not changed.
But even would you come back if they were able to, let's say, strike a deal next week?
Well, I would say that depends on what this deal looks like. But historically, when the Senate cuts a deal amongst the Senate, it's typically a bad deal for the country.
So, John Bresnahan, you are our insider up there on Capitol Hill. Tell us what this is. There really potential for a deal? Is this kind of wishful thinking with the Senate suggesting maybe it will come back next week to get something done? And what is the proposal that the White House says it could support to get something done here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe had a really good point before. There's always a chance, everybody already talks gloom and doom, and then there's some deal emerges. I don't know in this case. I'm not sure there's a sweet spot on immigration. The Senate has, passed a Gang of Eight bill back in 2013, and it got shot down in the House. Immigration is one of the toughest issues Congress deals with. So I'm not sure even Republicans can agree amongst themselves. Forget about the White House and agreeing with the Republicans, or the Democratic leadership in the House and Senate agreeing with the Republicans. I'm not sure you could get a deal between House and Senate Republicans on an immigration bill. So I think this is really a difficult issue. I mean, we're talking about parole, we're talking about asylum, we're talking about detention. Every time that the White House moves toward Republicans, it's got to worry about it. It's left. It's got, the Hispanic caucus doesn't like what it hears. Progressives don't like what they hear. I mean, I had Pramila Jayapal telling me between, this potential deal and what's happening in Gaza, I mean, that's fraying the coalition, the very coalition that Biden needs to get reelected. So I think the timing on this is really, really extraordinarily sensitive. I have a hard time seeing them doing a deal in the short term, maybe into January, but in the short term, I just have a hard time seeing it come together.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense by January being able to put something together, write something down, because Maura, at the end of the day, I know the Republican senators don't want to go out campaigning, being the people that stood in the way of aid to Israel and aid to Ukraine, and also a pretty good deal on the southern border. I think we need to look to what happened with the defense appropriation bill. It passed when normal people rolled over the crazy people on the far right in both parties, Republicans, Democrats. It passed last night. I suspect there won't be a deal that the hard right backbenchers will ever support on immigration. But taken all together, it does seem that if they get rolled again, it's a possibility, right?
It seems possible. I think the analogy that keeps coming to mind, though, is the way we used to talk about abortion. So before Roe v. Wade got overturned with Dobbs, the abortion issue was an extremely powerful one for the Republican base, because they could use Roe v. Wade as kind of the boogeyman. And the moment that the Dobbs decision came out, that actually just completely reversed the political dynamic. And now, of course, this has been an issue that's very powerful for Democrats. I think similarly, it's very easy when Republicans are not in the White House to blame the Democratic president, in this case, Joe Biden, of course, for any issue at the border. And I think striking a deal on immigration is probably, to their mind, not in the best interest at the moment for Republicans. Now, that doesn't mean it's certainly in the best interest of the country to secure the border, to get a rational immigration system. We've needed this for 2 decades. But I don't know that Republicans are thinking about it in those terms. I think they have an election coming up, and this is a good boogeyman for them. So they can continue to blame the president and Democrats as long as they don't strike a deal. If they do strike a deal, they've got to put their name to whatever happens after that. And that just doesn't fly with the Republican base.
Yeah, they don't want to do that. It's just like healthcare reform.
Americans are in a bad mood about the economy. Republicans, Democrats, independents, they are telling pollsters that they feel miserable. Now, I can give you all the reasons why the economy is in very good shape. Employers are still hiring, wages are outpacing inflation. Even today, news that inflation was up just over 3% compared to a year ago. Really good news. But here's the problem. Americans are mad. They're mad because so many things cost more than they did before the pandemic. Groceries are up 25%. Rent is up 21%. Auto insurance up 35%. And for many, it's not about inflation slowing back to its old pace before the pandemic. They want prices to fall back too. But here's the thing. I'd like to see prices lower, but when you dig into it, that might not actually be a good thing. We're going to explain why. And luckily, I got the perfect guy to do it. My good friend Justin Wolfers is here, professor of economics and public policy at the University of Michigan. Justin, we have a good economy, right? Almost every leading economist a year ago thought we would be deep in a recession today, and we're not. Inflation has slowed. But the sticking point for so many of us in our everyday lives that's creating this negative sentiment is that stuff's really expensive, right? Before the pandemic, a gallon of milk was $3.20 on average. Today, it's $4. When people go to restaurants, they're saying, Jesus, when are these prices going to go back down? I need you to explain to us why it is a good thing for prices not to go back to pre-pandemic, because I'd like them to be lower.
We'd all like that, wouldn't we? And, you know, Stephanie, don't stop and say, let's get prices back to 2019 levels. You know what's even better? Let's get prices back to 1919 levels. Coke was a nickel. Wouldn't that be fabulous? Look, the reason that thought experiment doesn't work is we could go back, we could have prices at 1919 levels, all prices, including wages. And that's the thing. What happens in the economy on average is as prices rise, so do wages. Like one comes with the other. And what we've seen in this economy is, yes, prices have risen a lot, but so have wages. Now, I want to get to the core of your question. There is a way back to 2019 prices. In fact, there's a way back to 1919 prices. We could smash the economy. We could stop all demand. We could create a massive recession so that no one anywhere could sell anything at their current prices. So then they'd have to cut prices. And that's how we get prices to go back, by destroying demand, by raising unemployment to 10, 11, 12, 15, 20%. But I'll tell you the truth, none of us want that, because the pain of inflation is temporary. It's prices getting ahead of wages. The pain of unemployment is a whole lot greater.
All right, but let's talk about this. The economy is different for different people, right? If you own a home, yes, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, if you've got a steady job, a 401k, things are okay for you, right? Health insurance, higher prices, they're maddening, but you feel pretty good financially. If you're on the other end, if you are trying to save for buying a home, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, higher prices are killing you. So how do you solve things for people in that second camp? Just saying to them,
welcome to a Friday edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
Hey, what's poppin', my friends, my family? It's good to be back with my brother CJ. And the last segment is exactly why I say that we are the most propagandized country in the world. I mean, they're going for it. God bless their heart, right?
Yeah, good
The
Lord.
strategy of
When I
having a
saw
bunch of,
that.
yeah, the strategy of having a bunch of millionaires lecture working class people about how they have misconceptions about the economy. Isn't that a grand strategy, CJ? Doesn't that make you want to vote Democrat? Doesn't that make you who's struggling, paying your bills? People like me who don't have any health care. You guys know I don't have health care. So people like me who don't have health care, people who are struggling, that make us feel great, right? To hear some millionaires talk about how great the economy is. Great work, Democrats. I'm sure that messaging is doing great. Wait. What? We are down how many swing states? Jesus fucking Christ. I saw your segment on that yesterday. I'll pass you, CJ. That's I'll let you get started.
Yeah. So I will bring the video up because I think it is important for us to have a sort of radical analysis of this capitalist attempt to whitewash the clear markers that they use to decide what the economy is doing good has zero to do with the workers, has nothing to do, no connection at all.
So
and this is where they're finding this disconnect. But go ahead. What's your point?
To your point, CJ, why don't Democrats make the connection with the fact that we are seeing an historic labor action? There is a historic amount of workers who are upset, and there are stories and polls that show this, that there's a massive amount of labor organizing. Why is there a record amount of this organizing, CJ? Why are so many workers upset? Why isn't that an indicator of the economy? Because if everything's going great, if workers are well fed, if everyone feel like their standard of living is up to par, you wouldn't see so many strikes, right? So the fact that you see so much worker discontent, that's an indicator I would use. The fact that you see so many Amazon people upset, Starbucks people upset. And there's even more who can't unionize because they're pressured by management. They are union busted by management. They are not able to organize. So to me, that's one of the most important indicators. It's absurd that they want you to focus on the GDP of the economy. The only thing you should focus on is the GDP of your household. But go ahead, go ahead.
Because the GDP of the economy. Just ask yourself. This is real basic. Like, ask yourself, how do we know in a capitalist society a business is doing well? Profit. Who gets the profit, Nick? But the owners. So any marker that is telling you profits are up is only telling you what the owner is getting, what the owner is feeling in the economy. How the hell does, and just this is what they're trying to get us to do, Nick. The economy in our own house. We are unhoused. But the stock market is going off the roof. We're supposed to answer that question as if our own economy has no basis in us answering that question. And that's what they're trying to get us to do. But the reason I needed us to focus in on this guy, and I needed to find this clip because right before this clip was several days old. And I'm so surprised that not even Case Study caught this shit. It's insane what he says here. Especially what he says about, why don't we? Because you can tell that he doesn't have a good argument in the way that he starts it. Anytime somebody starts it with trying to be and flip it as if it's just ridiculous, like anytime that's an indication that, hey, I don't have much to say. I can say that's going to combat the reality here. So I'm going to give it a try. And that's what he does here. But we have to analyze this. But go ahead.
And these segments have been on overdrive recently. Like they do at least one or two of these segments almost every morning Joe segment now. And you guys think it's a coincidence they have a bunch of millionaires to gaslight their audience that the economy is so well when the economy is one of the number one indicators of voters and there's an election coming up in the next year? You think that's a coincidence? And this is why I say that we have the most sophisticated form of propaganda, because how exactly does this work? I just saw a segment on CNN about this. You see articles about New York Times Washington Post. You see, so is it like how do they coordinate this? So it's extremely sophisticated. These people that are in planning these positions, they know it's election time. It's time to start gaslighting workers again. So and we are still 10 months away from the election next year. Wait until next summer. How unbearable CNN and MSNBC, New York Times, and Washington Post is going to be.
Oh, it's going to be terrible. What I was saying, you was just alluding. The reason I said, "Oh my God," is because I can't believe we was thinking the same thing. But damn, what were you just saying when you said that? I was saying, because I'm seeing both sides of this. It's weird how they go, the economy is doing good. What are you talking about? And then they do segments like where they talk about how mortgage prices are up and it's not going down. And I was just watching a segment on MSNBC where they were talking about how inflation can affect everything but housing cost. And they were saying how that is the tricky part of inflation. We can't affect that because in order to affect housing costs, that's year over year. So it takes a long time. You know what I'm saying? Have you ever seen a landlord, Nick, go, hey, you know that $2,000 a month you spend? I'm going to go ahead and knock it down to $1,500. That's what I'm going to go ahead and do. That never happens. You get what I'm saying? It never goes in the opposite sort of direction. But I do want to show some more of this video and give an analysis of this, of what he says here, because it's important that our community goes back and take what we're gonna the analysis we're gonna have on what he says here and go back and tell people about, because other people aren't getting our analysis, but they're hearing this guy.
Professor of
And
economics.
we gotta know what our enemies are saying too.
At the University of Michigan.
I shouldn't have started.
Justin,
no, you good. Let's keep going. I'll just say we gotta know what our enemies are saying. That's why it's important to know this. This is the demented mind of the smiley face side of capitalism, fam. Remember, the liberals are supposed to be the gentle side of capitalism, the one that social democrats prefer. But this is their ideology. Their ideology is to gaslight the workers too. Now imagine what the frown side of capitalism, the fucking Sean Hannity side of capitalism. They don't give a fuck. They're not even looking at worker indicators. But let's continue, TJ. We can get to the segment.
Yeah. Now, if we were writing, if Hollywood was writing a movie where this segment was in the movie, it's somehow, I believe, the actor and the character will be written to look exactly like this guy looks right here. And I'll explain what I mean after he speaks, because it's almost like he checks the boxes of what they're trying to, you get what I'm saying? He looks smart, but not rigid. You get what I'm saying? He's not like coming here to give data points. He's just giving sort of vibes about what the economy is doing. But let's listen. I'm going to stop it a couple of times when this economic analysis that he gives here.
We have a good economy, right? Almost every leading economist a year ago thought we would be deep in a recession today, and we're not. Inflation has slowed. But the sticking point for so many of us in our everyday lives.
I was just going to stop it there too. Go ahead.
Economists thought we was going to be in a recession this time, and we exceeded expectations. You know they use that as a filler when they have nothing good to tell you. Some random jackoff said something's going to be great, and now it's slightly worse. So hey, we kind of near that. So hey, come on, man. Like, capitalists set expectations low, and then they pat themselves on the back for not even exceeding that. They're like, oh, well, we almost did it. We almost set the low expectations we set for ourselves. Absurd. Let's continue.
But recession is really about holding back workers, because if you think about it, and then let me say it this way, aren't we always in a recession, Nick? Haven't you been in a recession for several decades, sir? Like workers live in a constant state of recession.
What does it mean when you don't have healthcare? Like, I have people in my family. I've been careful because they don't want me to talk about it. But I have people in my family that have garnishments, like people close to me. Something that really impacted like my mental health and our family. Like someone really close to me had their paychecks garnished because of medical debt. And you guys know why I hate privatized healthcare and the capitalist mode of production. Like, and that's multiple people in my family that had this happen to them. So how do you even label that as your economy? Recession when you're getting your fucking wages garnished? You beyond recession at that point. And my healthcare plan is eat vegetables and don't get injured and don't get sick. That's my plan. How do you even define that in economics terms, right? Well, let's continue, CJ.
Right on.
That's creating this negative sentiment is that stuff's really expensive, right? Before the pandemic, a gallon of milk was $3.20 on average. Today it's $4. When people go to restaurants, they're saying, Jesus, when are these prices going to go back down? I need you to explain to us.
Oh, my bad. I misspoke slightly. It doesn't change what I said, but I said it as if this segment was a segment saying the economy's doing good. This is what you're seeing. You're seeing them saying both sides of the equation. This is a segment not saying the economy's doing good. It's saying, yeah, prices are high, but saying that we don't want prices to go down, which is so freaking absurd. But let me let him get this out, and then we can comment on his words.
To us, why it is a good thing for prices not to go back to pre-pandemic, because I'd like them to be lower.
We'd all like that, wouldn't we? And, you know, Stephanie, don't stop and say, let's get prices back to 2019 levels. You know what's even better? Let's get prices back to 1919 levels. Coke was a nickel. Wouldn't that be?
So you understand, this is a short little propaganda report. Is very important because what this tactic is doing is it's almost giving it a conspiracy theory stamp. The way he comes in and describe, look, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just make everything free? You get what I'm saying? Republicans do this a lot when with student loan debt. Why don't we just wipe out debt, credit card debt? Why don't we just it's to make what the argument is seem so insane and out of the norm that this can't possibly happen, guys. That is the propaganda tactic that they're using here. Let's continue.
That'd be fabulous. Look, the reason that thought experiment doesn't work is we could go back, we could have prices at 1919 levels, all prices, including wages. And that's the thing. What happens in the economy on average is as prices rise, so do wages.
Nick, that is profoundly a bold-faced lie. This is what have we been talking about surrounding the $15 minimum wage? We're talking about decades of not even being raised. We're talking about decades when we're talking about it's not even connected to inflation. When I heard that line, I was like, how do you even muster the ability to say this with a straight face? That is absolutely false. $15 minimum wage is like $10 behind of what it should be. But go ahead, Nick, if you were going to chime in.
No, I don't want to be long, but this is why I say we're the most sophisticated form of propaganda. They know exactly what gets defined. They know exactly what script to repeat, and they do it without shame. Like you're not embarrassed repeating this garbage, but like you said, look at these.
Like one comes with the other. And what we've seen in this economy is, yes, prices have risen a lot, but so have wages. Now, I want to get to the core of your question. There is a way back to 2019 prices. In fact, there's a way back to 1919 prices. We could smash the economy. We could stop all demand. We could create a massive recession so that no one anywhere could sell anything at their current prices.
Who is he talking about, Nick, when he's describing here, except for the owner, the capitalist? We can smash the economy. Nick, do you know the UAW says this all the time when in their negotiation, when they were ramping up to their negotiations, and people would say, what about unions? What about, they're going to have to raise the prices because they got to compete. And he was like, they could double our salary and not raise the prices a penny and still make billions. The idea that, go ahead. No, go ahead.
My apologies, CJ, but this simple concept where you're explaining the theory of labor value is why I don't buy the right-wing freak out over immigration and them tying it to our woes in the economy. Because I'm not saying there's no relation, but I need people to explain to me how the immigrants are preventing the Walton family from paying their workers their fair labor value. The immigrant is not stopping the capitalist from stealing. They're not the reason the capitalists are stealing your labor value. Let me put it that way. There's people say, well, the immigrants drive down wages. I'm like, that, yeah, that's your capitalist theory. Because how is Miguel, who lived down the street, what did he have to do with the fact that every single man driver I had stole my labor value? You know what I mean? And this is like questions I've been asking for years. I never really got a good explanation for this. They said, well, if they there, that means capitalists can pay people less money. So you mean the capitalists stealing labor value, and they using Miguel as an excuse? To your point, CJ. And here, as you explained earlier, they make all the excuses for why they don't pay people their labor value, what they truly produce, the value of their work and their labor, and they make up 1,000 excuses. Oh, the stock market down, we panicked, so we drove wages down. Bullshit. I need people to understand that the way that we view the economy, the way we analyze these issues is completely different than capitalists on both sides. And that's why our ideology scares the shit out of them, because we are the most effective way of deprogramming people. We are the most effective way of challenging their propaganda, because imagine a social democrat, Elizabeth Warren style person. They can't debunk it like this because they set the fucking framing. Elizabeth Warren, like, oh, I got see, Biden got a good economy. Look. You know what I mean? But anyway, CJ, I don't want to go too long. I'll pass back to you.
No, that's just like a social democrat, and they give it away, Nick. The reason communists has always been at the forefront of the top propaganda against communists. And what else do you hear them say? Marxists. It's a dirty word to them because they understand those two groups, that are very closely related, communists and Marxists. Those two groups. Capitalists understand they have the best critique, the best analysis, and the best solution. That's the reason they have to keep a lid on both of those. But go ahead.
One more quick thing, CJ, and I just want you guys know I don't believe anything they say about the economy, because capitalists just make shit up, and they just hope that you don't know anything and you just don't question it. One thing that CJ and fam, do you guys know one thing that that Republicans were saying during the inflation crisis? They said one of the reasons why we had inflation is because Biden was giving handouts to the worker during COVID. The fuck? Like, they would just make, if we didn't get $1,400 checks, we wouldn't have inflation. And then a year before that, if there wasn't an minimum wage increase over there, we wouldn't have inflation. If it wasn't for this union organizing over there, it wouldn't be for inflation. It's funny how everything that they blame inflation on is things that help workers. And it's something I noticed for a while. They have no explanation for inflation. So during the time we had massive inflation, we talked about how there were massive corporate greed in the oil companies that were making massive profits as people were paying a ton at the pump. And then they're like, oh my God, this is because of Joe Biden's horrible policies. It's because of this horrible policy. No, because the gas companies and the people who run it is squeezing the consumer to maximize profit, which is why capitalism is a system that enables more individual private capitalist taxes on the workers, because we was giving price gouge because capitalists being good business people. Like, it was a great move. Like, capitalists, oh my God, these immoral fucking oil people. No, nigga, why wouldn't you do what they did? like call supply and demand. There was a big demand for oil and gas. There was a shortage, so they took advantage of that. There was a crisis, they take advantage of that. That capitalist, disaster capitalism, that's something that makes you a great capitalist business person. That's why if you're gonna have a smart mode, central mode production, you steal and you destroy their power from the very, very core, because they are the cause of inflation. Every single store and every single company that decided to take advantage of the COVID-19 fucking public scare and panic and jack up prices, and the people, oh my God, the COVID inflation, people was taking advantage of the craziness because of the pandemic. That is what capitalists do. So instead of blaming inflation on these capitalists who are pretty much imposing a private tax on the consumers, you have capitalists that say inflation is because you got a $1,400 check. Inflation is because the child tax credit. So after seeing this for years, I realized they're just making this shit up, CJ. They would blame anything on any program that would affect the workers because they're in a constant mode of class warfare. You know what I mean? But I'll spare you guys. I'm done ranting on this. I'll pass it back to you, CJ.
No, that's spot on. I do want to bring this up here. I thought this was interesting. I like Marxists, but open borders is a failed strategy.
We already have open borders. We have open borders for the capitalist class. You have people right winger capital like, oh my God, my uncle lost their job. Their job shipped overseas. How the fuck they do that? So they got open borders. They can just cross the border if you're a business, huh? So my proposition is we either side one way or the other. Either we have maximum protection for workers and then reasonable immigration policy, or we have the current open border system for capitalists that we have now, and we allow the workers freedom of movement, which was an old school libertarian argument. This is and guys, I want to be clear, by the way, there's actually disagreement on Marxists on this. Like there's Marxists who disagree with me on this. Like there's socialists and a lot of Marxists who believe in strict immigration protections. There's a wide variation of opinion on this issue. But one thing that libertarianism and a lot of Marxists and socialists agreed on was the ability to have freedom of movement. That's an old school right wing idea that I agreed with. So I don't know why people want to prop up a giant bureaucracy government that tells people where they want to move, because I'll be honest, one part of why I want open borders is being selfish. I will admit that. Because, CJ, what do they tell us all the time? Nick, if you don't like it in America, why don't you get out? Nigga, I would love to. Nigga, that's a lot of fucking problems with your suggestions. If we have freedom of movement, I might be able to take you up on that, go to Brazil, and get my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. That's something I would love to do. So, honestly, it is kind of selfish of me. Because if you believe in liberty, if you believe in small government, you should believe in the freedom of humanity. So, CJ, I pass to you.
Anytime somebody, I'm just going to say this from my indigenous ancestry, anytime somebody says, if you don't like it, get out, I look at them the same way we would look at a Zionist telling a Palestinian that. If you don't like it, get out. What? You the one that need to fucking get the fuck. A person who doesn't belong in the house telling somebody else to get out is absurd to me. So anytime a white person says anything similar to that, I'm like, what the fuck did you say? This is not even your fucking house, bro. The fuck? Oh, you want to go back there? Then we can't go back that far. But they want to make all kind of movies about American war and all kind of fucking historical shit, but they skip over that shit though. But go ahead.
Yeah. This last comment, then we can move on, because I don't want to hijack the comment, the segment. Autonomy is lost without borders. Globalist wet dream. I just explained to you guys that the concept of freedom of movement, open borders is a propaganda term. The freedom of movement is a libertarian idea, because the idea of old school, libertarians back when they was principled, was they don't believe that government can tell you what to do with your life. And one big part of government is border control. Right. In old school Europe, in old school society, you had constant movement between borders. Like, do you guys ever learn history? I've studied history pretty closely. You know how people used to travel back in the day? You go there, you go somewhere, you meet someone, and you talk to them, and you explain why you're in the country. And now there'll be certain policies based on what countries are at war with each other that limit immigration policy. But for the most part, there was a large amount of freedom of movement until the industrial era. People need to realize this new era of strict border enforcement is new. In the 1800s, Americans and Mexicans used to cross the borders all the time. So I am begging people, please read history. Please read how humanity worked. When you look at the Middle Ages, people leave and move fucking countries all the time. This new concept of strict borders is new in humanity. The same way of strict police states is new in humanity. For the most part, societies have had a libertarian mode of production where they left it to individual lords, for the better or worse, individual lords, individual local leaders to enforce these kind of things. And then big liberal society broke your guys' brain and make you guys believe that TSA, all these border protections, TSA and all this ICE shit is natural. That shit is absolutely not natural. And what I am telling you guys is not a Marxist argument. I'm telling you guys, there are Marxists who disagree with me, fam. This is a libertarian argument. And I personally believe that the government cannot tell me if I wanted to live in Mexico, if I want to go Canada, if I want to go to fucking Japan, I should be able to do that. That's just a classical belief. And the reason, and why you guys don't admit it, the reason why you guys don't believe in that is because you guys been programmed from birth.
Right.
You believe in strict borders. You guys don't want to admit that. But anyway, go ahead.
Just look at we see the illustration now. You mentioned immigration. What you're talking about is connected to that, because who does borders benefit but owners of capital in whatever individualized country? Just think about what's happening now. If we didn't have borders, how are they going to be able to suppress the global south? Why do you think they're trying to keep? Why is it they only get hyped up about people coming from the global south getting in here, unless you need those people to stay down there primarily so you can keep gouging them so that you can keep the profits going? That's what the importance of the border. They trying to scare you that it's some other thing, but the importance of the border is how can capitalists pick and choose which areas they're going to exploit the most so that they can give white countries a bit of good. They have to do that. There's no way. Otherwise, people would just leave. This is why people come to the United States. I thought this was easy to understand, but apparently not, Nick. Apparently not.
CJ, and the right wing is very open about how their analysis of immigration has nothing to do with workers, because as you see how our analysis is based on that, based on liberties, principle, and that stuff. You have people like Tucker Carlson, people that just openly talk about how demographics, how we got to control demographics. We can't allow the country to lose a certain percentage of white people. And I'm not making this up. They literally say this. I watched quite a bit of right-wingers talk about how the Democrats wouldn't change demographics. We need to protect the demographics of the country. So I'm asking you guys right now, why should revolutionary blackout and our black eyes care about that? So my only analysis is rooted in principles and the power of the government. Meanwhile, a ton of people who hate our position, their position is rooted on demographic control. And a lot of them won't admit it, and many of them, trust me, they do. Like, it shocks me, CJ, how many of them just admit that the reason why they don't want immigration because they think the Mexicans going to make the place dirtier. They don't want more Muslims in the country. Once again, as someone who don't care about that in general, why the fuck should I care? Why the fuck should I pick up their political crusade? Makes no sense. You need to make the pro-worker, pro-civil liberty argument to me, and you cannot. Libertarians, many of them have betrayed themselves. I had Liam Cosgrove from the Gray Zone, who is an old school classical libertarian, and we agreed on this. He was a libertarian. I don't know if you remember this, CJ. I don't know if you watched.
No, I remember that episode.
I didn't know he was a libertarian. I knew he was on the Gray Zone. Like, oh, he's based. We follow each other on Twitter, and then on the stream he said, "I'm more of a libertarian." I'm like, well, I didn't know that. So I asked
Max
him about,
too. I think Max is more of a libertarian too. Yeah,
I would definitely say Max is a libertarian. So the Lion Cosgrove, he said he's a libertarian. So then I asked him kind of impromptu, like, "Hey, bro, what do you think about open borders? I'm curious." And he's like, "Yeah, as a libertarian, I don't believe in that shit." So you guys see, there are principles libertarians who are against that. There's been a movement on this for a very long time. And you guys know that, as I mentioned, I don't use the term globalist, because you guys know how people use the term globalist, they just substitute that with lack of knowledge. Like, globalists want open borders. That's a capitalist problem. You guys see how they substitute capitalists with globalists because they don't want to criticize capitalism? Libertarians had a critique of the overall capitalist agreement that companies and capitalists had the freedom of movement. Anyway, we went on this quite a bit.
Yeah. No, but this is the discussion I wanted to have. I mean, we added the immigration, but it's all connected.
CJ, check your volume real quick. You went muted for some reason.
got the money for the fundraiser. I just haven't purchased it yet. So I take my time with research and stuff. So that's why this mic still has the short in it. Everybody knows that watch every day. It's not much more left in this segment. What I was saying before the mic shorted out was this is exactly the conversation I wanted to have, and it's connected to immigration. These are all sort of connected issues. So I'm glad for the question. Even though we disagree, Nick, with the comments we put up, I'm glad because we're able to address it right now, which is a good point. Just let him make them one more point, and then we're gonna close this and move on to the next segment here.
Yeah, fair enough.
So then they'd have to cut prices, and that's how we get prices to go back, by destroying demand, by raising unemployment to.
Let me just let him say the full thing he was saying. Let me go back 15 seconds so he can get the full sentence out.
The economy. We could stop all demand. We could create a massive recession so that no one anywhere could sell anything at their current prices. So then they'd have to cut prices, and that's how we get prices to go back, by destroying demand, by raising unemployment to 10, 11, 12, 15, 20%. But I'll tell you the truth, none of us want that, because the pain of inflation is temporary. It's prices getting ahead of wages. The pain of unemployment is a whole lot greater.
So there is another way to fix that. It's not just that way. It would be, for example, the billions upon billions that Amazon made instead of making. How about cutting 100 of the billions that it made? 100 billion, for example, you take and you cut prices across the board on every item until that $100 billion pool is gone. That's one way to lower price. You see how capitalists any issue in capitalism where they want to affect and they manipulate the stock market and manipulate everything. Everything is always put on the worker, from a recession to unemployment. And understand, unemployment is induced. You don't think all of a sudden the company just realized, oh, these 10,000 workers, we don't need them anymore. Like, you think all of a sudden that happens? No, these are strategies to manipulate something in an economy. Usually it's inflation. Sometimes it's like interest rates and so on. But I digress. Let's let him make this final point, and then we'll move on, unless you had a point there, Nick.
Yeah, we move on.
Yeah.
All right, but let's talk about this. The economy is different for different people, right? If you own a home, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, if you've got a steady job, a 401k, things are okay for you, right? Health insurance, higher prices, they're maddening, but you feel pretty good financially. If you're on the other end, if you are trying to save for buying a home, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, higher prices are killing you. So how do you solve things for people in that second camp? Just saying to them, man, it's not a recession, you should feel good. That doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Look, you make a really important point, which is I was just describing averages, and each of us is different. A beautiful flower. One of the things that's really important about this current expansion is the first expansion in my lifetime in which people in the lower half of the income distribution are getting larger wage rises. So in fact, this is the first time in decades pay rises are going to those who need them the most. You know where they're not going? They're not going to the highly educated upper middle class, amongst which
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
I was going to let it play I was waiting to hear you, Nick. Literally, I had no cue. No word cue. I'm like, I'm waiting to Nick go off. That's when I know the cue is to stop.
Jesus fucking Christ. Play that part again, because I know I probably interrupted it, but holy shit. Go back 10 seconds. That's a good way to end the segment on that crazy show. Let's get enough plans.
It's just more of this nonsense. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, man. God. Yes.
Are getting larger wage rises. So in fact, this is the first time in decades pay rises are going to those who need them the most. You know where they're not going? They're not going to the highly educated upper middle class, amongst which journalists are dramatically overrepresented. So for a large number of people, the reality is that they're doing better. They're actually doing better than just keeping up. They're getting ahead. For you, Stephanie, I bet you're kind of finding it hard to get someone to clean your house. It might be a little more expensive than it once was. I'm not saying you don't do it yourself.
Yeah, we can stop it right here.
Yes, when a price changes, two things happen.
1 second.
The buyer feels worse.
I
but the
want to
seller
say
feels happier. And that's what we're seeing right now with low-wage labor.
He said the buyer feels worse, but the seller feels happier. At least he's admitting it right there. But you notice he didn't answer the question, how do you address the people who are at the bottom? He never sort of addresses that, except to say wages are going up. That's what they keep telling us. But your wages are up. Sir, with my wages up, I'm telling you shit's too damn high. And all your response is wages are going up. That's it, Nick. But go ahead. I know you were going to chime in.
You know, one of the reasons why I learned martial arts because I hate bullies. I'm proud of myself for being someone who stood to bullies multiple times in my life. So as someone who hate bullying, I would say this guy need to be stuffed in a locker more than probably anyone else. This guy need to be stuffed in a locker. He need his lunch money stolen. This is what happens. Now, on a more serious note, the reason why I believe this is important to cover, one of the reasons why we're the most propagandized country in the world, is because this is blatant psychological manipulation and abuse of the working class. So these statements are not only here just to trick people into voting for Joe Biden and pretend that the current establishment is doing fine. It's here to shame the people who are feeling like they're being left behind on the economy. It's for the people who feel like they can't get ahead. I told this story 1,000 times. I'll spare you guys. I had a conversation with my cousin. One of the people that I allowed crash in my house. Like I allowed multiple people in my family to live in my house. And one of the most depressing conversations I had in recent memory was when he was like blaming me, like, man, I don't know why I keep fucking up, man. I don't know what the hell's going on with me, man. I'm sorry I had to live. Pretty much he apologized. I had to live in my place. It was a very depressing, self-depreciating conversation. And I'm like, bro, you work 2 jobs. It's like, what the fuck? Why are you pretending it's your fault? You work hard. And because he kind of implied, like, man, if only I could do something more. Like, bro, you work 2 jobs. You can't even afford a place. That's not your fault. The system is crushing you. So my cousin was a victim of the psychological manipulation of our system. Instead of looking at the system like, why is this guy who working 2 jobs can't afford his own place and can only see his kids on Saturday because he works so much. But despite working so much, he can't afford a place, can't afford a car. What the fuck is this about? But he thinks he is the fuck up because of this. So there's someone who's going through this trauma, like, man, why am I struggling? My kid's not living the life I wanted to live. Why am I struggling to pay my bills? Am I fucking up? Then you have some rich ass on TV. The economy's doing great. Everyone's doing great.
Right.
Everyone's doing great. Everyone's doing great. And then you're like, man, this is my fault. Oh my God, man. Oh my God, it's my fault. Y'all see, this is not on accident. This is psychological manipulation and abuse of the capitalist class. CJ, anything else you want to add? I have a segment.
No, that was spot on. No, you can go do your segment. I know we probably both have the Marianne Williamson segment, so
yeah, that'd be a dual segment.
Yeah. So go ahead.
We can do that segment after this one. It sort of relates.
All right. Let me do a couple of announcements. Let me read the super chat. I think we got one super chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me read. It says I'm making $13.85 an hour at Goodwill warehouse. Well, solidarity to you, fellow worker, because I used to work in a warehouse. I worked at the JCPenney warehouse, and there's a Goodwill. I bought some stuff for Goodwill to take down to Skid Row. So I know people that work there work hard, Nick. They work hard. So just saluting Cobra Commander. Hamas are heroes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I worked in the warehouse while I was working in college. And while I was training, as I competed, I was stretching myself thin, fam. I was making around $13 an hour. I remember I got a promotion. I got like a $150 raise, and I was so happy. And that's funny because I'm calling out. I'm not like, I got I made $14.50 an hour now. Damn, doing grown ass work. So the capitalists who want to shame and attack the workers. They said, well, you can't complain about making $15 an hour. That's a teenage wage. If you want to make more, why don't you go get a real man job, a real adult job? So you guys telling me that kids are supposed to be working in these fucking warehouses? Like I never got a forklift certificate, but my brother did, and I had quite a few friends did. Motherfuckers making 15, 17 bucks an hour. And like, bro, you guys think kids are supposed to be doing this? And that's what they do to devalue work. Oh my God, all these jobs that pay low wages, they're supposed to be part-time teenage work. We live in a service economy. That's what the vast majority of the people's work coming through service jobs. And they say these same service jobs our economy is ran by should be paid less because those people are not beneficial to our economy. They're like children. You guys see how capitalists abuse and manipulate the workers in our society? And then a lot of people believe it. That's why people are so depressed. I don't want to lecture you guys, but there's a very close correlation between the depression and in our society and this psychological abuse when you're a worker being told that you're not worth a damn, your payment is low because you're not worth a damn. Go ahead, CJ. I know you want to chime in.
I was gonna say this is why they do this. This is a psychological thing, like you said. Why is it based? Why is it based on skill? Workers should be paid based on the profits that they make the company.
Absolutely.
Nothing else. Like, so those trucks that is being unloaded, for example, Nick, they have every marker to decide how much money they're losing in this part of their company. They can decide how much money is in each truck that those workers are unloading, and that worker would be getting paid a lot more if they were getting paid by how much money they are unloading, Nick. Then it becomes, wait a minute, you're going to sell this product in my hand for $50, but I'm only getting 5 cents out of this. You see? It's not based on me, because I can lift this box, I only deserve 5 cents. No, I deserve what you can make from what I'm doing. That's what I deserve. But go ahead, Nick, if you're going to say something else.
I'll put that comment down right when I'm about to read, but it's all good. I appreciate the comments. I featured it. CJ, I'll pass to you for announcement. I got next story. I'm gonna grab
do a couple of,
and I'll be right.
I'll do some announcements here. Make sure you join or go visit our website. We've made I don't want to overstate it, but we have made some updates to the website. We're always, we're working class. We don't have the money to just kind of do everything at once. So we're just kind of here and there doing a little bit at a time, adding more. Luckily, my sister has given us a great deal on designing this website. Shout out to my sister, Jess, short for Jessica. But on the website, you can go check about us. You can check our chapters out. That's something that has been new. We've added new pictures. But if you want to know about our chapters, you want to know some of the things that we target as far as what we want to do at our local chapters, we list that there. Things like building a community library, which Rome is doing in Detroit. Diaper and baby supply giveaways, school supply giveaways, disabled community outreach, feeding the poor and unhoused, housing activism, bill payment assistance, self-defense classes, remote webinar, citizen journalists, tutoring, arts, culture classes, and youth basketball training. Now, that's not at every chapter. This is what we're trying to do across all chapters, and it's just listed. Then you scroll down, you can see all the chapters there. When you click on them, you can see everything from pictures. If you're at the Boston or Detroit chapter, you can put in a request for mutual aid. So RBN, we're workers, but we're trying to contribute the most that we can do with the resources we can have. That's why anytime you're able to contribute, let me put it up here. We have our Patreon. I think the lowest tier, I've been saying it for so long, $2 was the low, and I was completely wrong. My apology. The lowest is $3, not $2. So if you're able to contribute, you see some of the things that we do at our chapters listed here. Also, we pay our editor out of that money, and she is going through something with her family member right now. So just positive vibes out to Aaron. Also, Nick, all right, that's what we're going to do with our announcements. I'll pass it to you for
one
the
last
story.
announcement.
Yeah, go ahead.
Special announcement. We're getting near the end of RBN 2023, I think we had a fantastic year, man. Like fantastic year. Next year we got a lot of stuff planned. I got a lot of stuff planned. Nick at Night season 2, I'm calling it. Returns.
That's good.
I've been away for a while. For Nick at Night for a lot of personal reasons. But Nick at Night returns. I'm aiming for January 4th. And I'm aiming for a different format. We're gonna go for about 3. We're aiming for 3 shows a week. Tuesday, Thursday, and Nick at Noon on Saturday. So Nick at Night Tuesday and Thursday, and then Nick at Noon will be Saturday at 12.
That's a nice lineup. That's a nice lineup right
there. We always got a lot of, we always evolve and we always change. So Nick and CJ will move to 1 day a week on Monday. But things change. Like we may have like special shows where we have guests. I'll come on. So do stuff like that. So I just want to announce that that's beginning of next year. I'm calling it Nick at Night season 2. Saturday will be Nick at Noon. Saturdays at noon. CJ, you always feel free to join in these shows if you want. Same with all my RBN friends. So it's a big project I'm trying to put through because I don't really have a time slot. You know what I mean? I never really ever since I had my old YouTube channel, I never really like focused on having a show. You know what I mean? Like the same way like Sabby and JB does. So this is my attempt at doing that. So that's why I'm attempting next year. The date I'm aiming for, the first show is going to be January 4th on the first Thursday. So Nick and I season 2. That's my last announcement. So for this segment, you guys want to talk about some foreign policy? We had the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. It's pretty weird they call it that, right? The Defense Authorization Act as they funding programs in other countries. But it's for our defense, though. It's a time of year because every time they do this, I always dive into it. It's always a big time for people who follow U.S. imperialism because you see exactly the moves of the empire planned for the next fiscal year. And Jim Crow Joe, Genocide Joe, doing what he does best, breaking records, 28 billion more than what was approved last year. You guys see how did this nonstop escalation of the military-industrial complex? The Pentagon failed its 5th audit in a row. By the way, I saw Lee Camp do some great reporting on that. But we have a massive $886 billion NDAA that was just passed. And in the House and the Senate, now it's going to Biden's desk. Now, Biden is seeking $111 billion of that will go to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
So as Democrats continue to sink in the polls, as Americans turn against these wars, I covered not too long ago how most Americans support ceasefire, most Americans support ending Ukraine aid. We got to notice how our government goes the exact opposite way. This is what a capitalist dictatorship looks like. We have absolutely no say in our foreign policy and in the mood of our government, the money that we spend. But look at this unhinged nonsense, because I saw this earlier. You have Biden that sent nuclear submarines, and they also include 3 more nuclear power submarines that go in Australia to prepare for a future war with China. The United States is the #1 threat to peace. You know all these segments they do? The right wing is talking about how China is threatening to go to war with the United States. CJ, they legitimately run stories like these all the time. They say, you got the Chinese government increased the military by 5%. This is evidence that they want to go to war with the United States. Meanwhile, we're sending nuclear submarines to Australia, sending weapons to Taiwanese separatists. So you have this unbelievably unhinged budget that's happening over Jim Crow Joe. Once again, another example of lesser two evilism being defeated, that concept being completely destroyed, because no matter who's your president, is why it's absurd to really obsess over it. That's why people in other countries don't obsess over it, because it don't matter if you got Democrat or Republican, no matter if Trump was in charge, you have the same money that will be flowing. I promise you. You guys think that Trump is going to get in charge next year and his money to decrease? They're going to have a lower NDAA? I promise you right now. How many times did RBN get stuff right? I am telling you guys right now, I'm going to be one of the first people, as anyone pretending that Trump is being anti-war. I promise you he's going to get in. He's going to do the same exact thing. I am telling you guys right now.
Let me add one thing. Let me add one thing that wasn't Yeah, because I'm so happy you did this. I didn't know if we were gonna get it. I saw this segment. I saw the details of the NDAA. I think that's it. Yeah, National Defense Authorization Act. And the thing I saw, I almost dropped my drink, Nick. When
I have a few things. I don't want you to spoil it because I think I know.
Okay, because please.
I don't want to interrupt you, bro. But I think I know
started shaking. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
Sorry, CJ. I apologize, but hold your thought. Hold your thought because I may get to it. I may get to it.
Okay.
So with that said, let's move on. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I may get to where you get.
No. Go ahead. If you knew where I was going. So go ahead.
You guys see what the unhinged budget that we are passing. This is how liberals in the Washington Post categorize it. House passes defense policy bill, a rebuke of the GOP's far-right fringe. So the United States sending billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine, apparently that's a liberal left idea now. Apparently opposing unlimited aid to go to the Zionist fascists in Israel is now a far-right policy, fam. You guys see the twisted way that and I love this subheadline. This is the twisted ideology of the shit lib. I don't even want to say liberal because I think there's a difference between a liberal and a shit lib. A shit lib is like just pure madly Albright. You know what I mean? So this is what the shit lib says. Democrats joined Republicans to approve $886 billion legislation after it was stripped of hardliners' demands targeting abortion, diversity, and LGBTQ rights. You guys see what the woke imperialists, what the shit libs use to sell their giant defense spending? And that's what they're doing right now. CJ, I don't got time to show you guys all the receipts, but liberals right now talking about, oh my God, it's a hallmark bill for LGBTQ service members. We seeing service members getting wage increases. This is a big loss for Tommy Tuberville and all these people who wanted to stick it to abortion. And these people are using woke ideology to defend this absolutely unhinged spending bill. Now, I'm going to get to the point where at least one of the two, because there's
several. There's several in there, yeah. There's several.
I have a hotspot video coming out on this, fam. You guys know how to do one on this.
Can't wait
so
to see
there's
that.
2 points of this I thought was very funny. Feel free to chime in on which I don't know which one you was going to chime in on, because there's multiple gems.
There's multiple, yeah. There is.
Before I get to Edward Snowden, because he chimes in on one part of this bill, you had Matt Gaetz. And I'm going to explain to you guys why I don't usually, while I may give them credit for getting something right and helping spread awareness, I don't give credit to, or I don't give a lot of stock to right-wing populists in terms of them actually making change. You know what I mean? Because they would say stuff like, yeah, we want to end war, we want to end corporate influence. Then you ask them how, then that should get really incoherent. You know what I mean? They don't have solutions to the problem. They're like Vivek Ramaswamy. Dude, Vivek Ramaswamy has been on fire recently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We got a segment for him. We'll get that. We got a segment for him later today. I got one short one. Yeah.
He's been on fire, but then ask this motherfucker about his solutions and watch how this shit gets sideways real quick. Ask him about solutions about Ukraine. Ask him about China. That one thing gets sideways. The same with right-wing populists. You have Matt Gaetz, who we praised. Remember how he kicked out Kevin McCarthy, CJ? So remember they did this whole political theater again, Kevin McCarthy out of the government. You know why they got Kevin McCarthy out of the government? One of the number one reasons, CJ, more than any other policy reasons, Matt Gaetz was tired of these multi-pronged bills. He wanted to vote on single issue bills. So because Kevin McCarthy broke that promise of having only single issue spending bills on the floor, that forced Matt Gaetz' hand to force him out of Congress speak because he broke his promise. So despite that, Matt Gaetz do this whole political theater to get one swamp monster out, only to replace him with another swamp monster that does the same exact thing that Kevin McCarthy does. So what exactly was the point of what Matt Gaetz pulled out, CJ? Because Matt Gaetz got rid of Kevin McCarthy. Now they got Mike Johnson, who's doing multi-spending bills, who's arming Ukraine, who's America last. So their victory is not a real victory, because the only thing they did was replace one oligarch, one swamp monster with another one. which is why I'm generally distrustful of right-wing populists, because even if we agree on these issues, they're just going to replace one establishment swamp monster with another capitalist establishment swamp monster. For example, like Tucker Carlson was on Jimmy Dore. He sounds good on a lot of issues until you realize that he liked Trump. So Tucker Carlson speaks a good game on the issue, and he's like, man, this motherfucker want to put Trump back in charge. That's the problem with the right-wing populists. Well, Matt Gaetz got rid of Kevin McCarthy, got Mike Johnson, that did the same damn thing. So what did they accomplish at the end of the day? Now let's get to this. This might be one of the things you want to comment on. These NDAAs is something, it's probably the most important thing to follow. Because they always put gems in these, which is why, even though I disagree with Matt Gaetz on a lot of things, anyone who's principally anti-imperialist, anyone who's anti-establishment supported his cause, because his primary cause was to end these multi-pronged bills where they slip in poison pills on must-pass bills. He wanted single vote bills, which I think anyone should agree on, right?
Yeah,
with the
I agree
establishment
too.
we're working on, right? That's not the end game, right? But that's obviously a good reform. Now, Matt Gaetz and the populist right did a victory lap, and now they got caught with their pants down their ankles, like what always happens. Now, let me read Edward Snowden's tweet, because I already built it up enough. Listen to this. This is fucking crazy, fam. Congress has voted to pass the NDAA, in which they deceitfully concealed an extension of the warrantless spying program, universally opposed by the public. So we were seeing the extension of the NSA spying program, and because it was set to expire this year. So then in doing this NDAA, they talking about, oh, we got to fund Israel. They doing all these distracting techniques, right? You got Tommy Tuberville on the right. We talking about abortion in the military over here. We talking about Israel over here. We talking about Ukraine over here. Oh, you want to look over here, look over here, look over here, look over here. As they doing that, there we go, more spying power. You guys see how they do this shit? So not only, and I cannot emphasize this enough, not only did they extend the spying program, they expanded it and modernized it. One tenet I read, and people are still going through it, CJ. So we're gonna have a lot of nuggets come out in the next few days once people really dive into this. One nugget I got early is that one thing they are expanding the spying program on. You know how businesses have open Wi-Fi, CJ? They're now expanding the spying program where businesses have to provide their data to the government based on requests, based on their visa requests or whatever, their spying program requests, that pretty much force anyone who have open Wi-Fi to follow the whims of the government. That's just one of the new expansions of the powers here that is more modernized. So I want to bring that up because I want to emphasize that this is a modern version of this. These are the people who voted against this. Thomas Massey.
This guy is starting to be the only one that's voting in the way that I want somebody to, like, I don't know Thomas Massey. I'm just literally starting to learn about this guy from Glenn Greenwald because I saw him on it. I'm like, wow, he's saying some shit that I'm like, now, of course, I'm pretty sure it's been a bunch of shit I don't agree with him if he considers himself a conservative. But when it comes, just like a lot of things with libertarian, I think he is a libertarian. He's a libertarian, by the way.
Yeah.
So a lot of things with libertarians is privacy and war that we agree on, and this is one of them. Go ahead.
Dude, I had no idea who Thomas Massey was until Ukraine. Because he's stood up to Ukraine, the Ukraine war. And then he stood up to the Israel Ramaswamy. Like, whoa, wow. Okay, so everyone does the Ukraine thing, because that's easy, right? So the Israel thing, like, okay, this dude, crazy. You know what I mean? Like, he's a right-winger. I'm sure a lot of things I disagree with him. I saw he did some border hawking before. He's like, you guys are so worried about funding Ukraine. You guys don't care about our border. You know, that's one thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's good they stand up on this kind of stuff. And he posted the names of representatives who voted against the bill. I was surprised to see names. I see Bowman, AOC, Ocasio-Cortez here. That's the first thing I was looking for. You know what I mean? Like, where did the progressive left vote for? So they did vote for this, to be fair. But these are the people who voted nay, but they lost because they needed 143 votes to block the extension and the expansion of the Pfizer program. They only had 118. They need 143. So I'll just read some quick receipts. I'll give your thoughts on this, CJ. And there's another fucking nugget in this NDAA. And I'm gonna continue to read through this. If I find any more, trust me, I'll be reporting on this. Every end of the year, I'm always looking at this. I'm always looking at this. So there are principled people on the right, which is, I can't emphasize enough. I think it's a very small minority. Very, very small minority. I was talking to Glenn not too long ago. We were talking about before. He's like, yeah, I'm kind of disappointed with a lot of people on the right who wasn't stand up for free speech on Israel. We give credit to people like Candace Owens, but Candace Owens is a minority, fam. The Libertarian Party is a minority. Remember, they get no more than 5% of the conservative vote. So they are in the minority. So, but at least they calling it out because you got principled conservatives. They're like, hey, Matt Gaetz. Hey, Mike Jones, what the fuck did we just accomplish? Replacing Kevin McCarthy with Mike Johnson. People are just now realizing it. They gave Mike Johnson power, and now Mike Johnson's like, I got you, motherfuckers. Full establishment. He's also funding Ukraine now, funding Israel. He'll pretend during the whole process, he's like, I'm going to be American first. I'm a MAGA, populist, Republican. See ya. Been gone with that gimmick. That gimmick changed real fast. And the people who thought they was getting a principal leader are furious. Here at the Libertarian Party. By approving unconstitutional, warrantless surveillance of Americans, they betrayed the American people. We've included a list of all the representatives who voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act. And when I looked through this list, I was way more surprised than seeing the squad vote no, because the names you see here are the standard neoliberal goons that you expect to vote against. And where Pelosi at? There it is. I didn't see her earlier, but I knew she would be there. I mean, so you guys say this list is way less like it's obvious who's gonna vote yes on it. All the neoliberal, neocon, all the swamp monster scumbags. One last one play, and then we get to the other giant one here. Another person who's deeply disappointed.
Yes.
You guys see how duopolists don't really have an answer to our problem, CJ? Because the people who pretend to be populist, like, yeah, I'm a populist, let's replace him with another duopolist. They thought they got a victory when they got rid of Kevin McCarthy. And remember, we praised the tactic because it proved that forced vote would have worked. There were a lot of like substantive items there that we can like the term limits, the limits on Ukraine spending, all that stuff, which Kevin McCarthy didn't uphold his deal on. But when you think your problems will be solved with a duopolist, you are grossly misleading yourself. And people like Steve Bannon are learned today. I'll let him speak for himself. This first time I actually heard this motherfucker speak in a long time. Let's hear it.
Your intentions don't matter. The only thing that matters is your human agency and what you deliver. What you deliver. So don't give me the biblical worldview. I saw it in the NDA. Your biblical worldview is manifested there. So don't do another prayer group. What I need is Christians at the ramparts prepared to stand in the breach in what we call the gap. It's not easy. You're going to get criticized on MSNBC. Mitch McConnell's going to say bad things about you. The donor's going to say this and that. Dude, screw them. You either believe it or you don't believe it.
I know what he says sounds great, but these people say this every few years. It gets old, right? Because the same way we criticize progressive Democrats for what they do, I see the same obviously on the right where you got people on the right like, yeah, we believe in the Republican Party, we do opposite too. Then they voted a new wave of Republicans like, yeah, this new wave of Republicans gonna do some shit. And then they're like, oh my god, these motherfuckers are puppies of McConnell. Like, when will you people learn? CJ, anything you want to comment on this part before I reveal the next bombshell?
Yeah, I saw this video, and I was surprised to actually hear him call him out in that way. Basically, say don't lead it, because this is actually the full clip. He actually calls him out. Like, don't lead another prayer group. You don't go to church. Don't stop calling yourself this. Like, he was calling him out like that. Don't call yourself a Christian, basically. So, but go ahead with the next headline.
Here's the ACLU. The ACLU spoke up against the Zionist project of cracking down on free speech on college campuses. Good for them for that. Good for them for this as well. ACLU slams Congress for NDAA vote, extending mass surveillance programs with no reforms. So I'll just read the first paragraph or two to sum it up again. The House of Representatives voted 310 to 118 to pass the National Defense Authorization Act. That's pretty much the setup there. Section 702 was designed to allow the government to warrantlessly surveil non-U.S. citizens abroad for foreign intelligence purposes. In recent years, however, it morphed into a domestic surveillance tool, with FBI agents using Section 702 databases to conduct millions of invasive searches for Americans' communications, including those of protesters, racial justice activists, 19,000 donors to a congressional campaign, journalists, and even a member of Congress. The ACLU, along with dozens of other civil society organizations from across the political spectrum, recently sent a letter, a sternly written letter, I'm sure, to congressional leadership urging them to oppose any attempt to include this authority in the NDAA. So that's just the ACLU summing it up. We saw Snowden slam it as well. Here's Common Dreams. I'll just read their headline so you guys get more context. The ACLU, Snowden slams bipartisan extension of unconstitutional spying law. It's incredibly disheartening that Congress decided to extend an easily abused law with zero of the reforms needed to protect all of our privacy, said the ACLU Senior Policy Council. So you guys want to know what the funniest thing that exposes the MAGA right that supported this, like Mike Johnson? Remember, CJ? Remember, fam?
Yeah.
How Trump supporters was upset about FISA abuses on Donald Trump? It was like, there's all this spying FISA abuses on Donald Trump. So now that expanded so they can abuse their authority on the American people. That's how dumb MAGA is. That's how dumb the Republican Party is. You guys just saw the Democratic Party abuse this, and you guys decided to give them not only more power, but to direct it at us too. Unbelievable stupidity from the Republicans. Because we, at this point, like, we're not surprised anymore. Like, we've been talking about how the politics have changed for quite some time. At a certain point, it's not surprising no more. We already know Democrats pro-censorship, pro-spying, pro-CIA, pro-FBI. There's a certain point where we stop being surprised about that, right? Now it's like, Republicans, you guys are embarrassing yourselves over and over and over again. They just did it with the Israel free speech, openly ruining their credibility and contradicting themselves on that. And now it's this. They were just complaining about the abuses of the FBI and FISA courts, and now they just suspended their power. One more funny thing on the NDAA. So, CJ.
Yeah.
They are seeing the same polls that we are seeing. So they don't have any problems with Trump's domestic policy, but there are some differences on how Trump may handle foreign policy that upset liberals. For example, pulling out NATO is one thing that Trump has threatened. And I will see if I'm wrong. I want the people that want to be bold. I want to be wrong. That's why I'm often able to turn around and say, "Oh, I'm right on this," because I'm often bold on shit. If I'm wrong on this, I will admit it. I don't want the first and only people that probably. I don't think Trump is gonna do none of the shit he's talking about, man. I just don't think he will. He's gonna find a way to spin it. He's not gonna be forced to, and even if he tried to, he's gonna be blocked by the checks and balances of our system. And he will then give up and then concede to the system like he did last time. We will see if I'm right on that. That's just my personal thought. It's okay if you guys want to push back on me on that, because it's just a theory, right? I don't think Trump's going to do what the shit he's going to talk about. But
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, they've added an extra layer in this NDA. I know you're getting to it. They added an extra layer.
You can introduce it if you want.
To him having the ability. So what's going on? They added this other provision. I'll go ahead and say it. They added this other provision that prevents a president from unilaterally removing the United States from NATO. So you're talking about the United States. I'm sorry, the representative of the United States. Now, foreign policy for a
CJ, you cut out going once, going twice. There you are.
Yeah, my bad. So you can hear me fine. Yeah. So let me read the headline: Protect NATO from Trump. The U.S.
I'll put this one back up. There you go.
Okay. protect NATO from Trump. The U.S. Congress just passed that in to law. And let me put up this headline, then I'll put yours back up here too.
Yeah,
and
no
this
problem.
is so earlier, Congress approves bill barring any president from unilaterally withdrawing from NATO. And if you go on Twitter, Nick, and I'll bring up some later, there's several Democrats like Tim Kaine saying this is basically a stopgap for Trump. This is basically to stop Trump from themselves. Now, as much as we are skeptical, Nick, of Donald Trump leaving NATO, at least the establishment has a belief that he could possibly leave NATO.
Yeah, once again, I'm open to the possibility. I could be wrong on this. I just go on my gut. You know what I mean? That's just what I do. I go on my gut. I'm going with it. But Trump saying what he says, this like the NATO thing is so important. I'm sorry to cut you off, CJ, but the NATO thing is so important. They can't gamble that. You know what I mean? What I'm saying, I'm like, I think I'm like 70% right. You know what I mean? But the establishment not gonna gamble NATO on whether Trump maybe told the truth or not. I personally don't think he's gonna do it, but the establishment is not gonna risk it. Let me read this last headline. Feel free to interrupt at any time because I want to explain a little bit. Because this is what my hotspot video focused on. So I already read a lot about this. Because this is the part I was like, holy, shameless shit by the establishment here. Here's another headline. The last one we read here. Lawmakers stuffed a provision into the Pentagon funding bill that makes it all but impossible for Trump to leave NATO. And I read the small details, CJ. You guys know what they did to change the law so the United States can leave NATO now? With the new law, the United States would need 2/3 Senate support in order to leave NATO now. Nigga, you are not getting 2/3 Senate support on anything other than waging war or corporate bailouts. Those are the only thing you're getting 2/3 Senate support on. So they said it either has to go through Congress or either has to pass the Republican House and then get 2/3 Republican support in the Senate. So essentially with our current establishment, they're saying we are in NATO for good. We are in NATO for good, CJ. And this exposes, and this is a concept that I need to explore more, how checks and balances in our system is largely bullshit. You guys know that? You guys know what checks and balances serve? The checks and balances serve the establishment just in case one of the branches goes rogue. Once one of the establishment branches goes rogue and they do stuff that the establishment doesn't want, then all of a sudden the other branches reduces the power of one of the other 3 branches that are going rogue. That's how checks and balances actually works. It's a way for the establishment to constantly get what they want. If any part of the establishment, like Congress, goes against something the establishment wants, then the Senate comes in and blocks it. If the Senate and the House comes and does something for the workers, then the Supreme Court blocks it. If then the House and Senate get something done, then the president vetoes it. You guys understand the checks and balance system that we have is designed to serve the establishment?
Yeah, and the fact that it's telling because the fact that's why they have the Senate. You notice they have all of these hurdles for everything the Senate, and that is the reason they do that is because the House. Think if you put up a vote to whether or not, like if Trump said, "Hey, I want to remove from NATO," and then let's say this law said that you have to go to the House to get it approved. You know how close that vote would be. You know how many people make they said, "Oh no, we can't do that. We need to go to the slave owners caucus, which is what we know call the Senate now. That's what it is." These are the richest of the rich. These are the backstop. Do we understand? The Senate is not in the Constitution. It's not. That's an added thing that they added as an added layer. And just to give you a brief history lesson, there's an added layer for slave owners. They saw where the wind was blowing for slavery and how it was going to get outlawed. So they needed, where you have, representation. This is a representation. So representation. So they thought the North was going to get too much representation in the House and then overturn slavery. So they said, okay, let's have the Senate. And then they filled the Senate with a bunch of slave owners. And that was a way to stop that from happening, to stop non-slave owner states from gaining too much power and then eliminating slavery. That's what we have. And they've been doing the same thing, Nick. The Senate has been working to stop progress. That is the reason they're here, is to stop progress, is the Senate.
Yeah, well said. So I think that the Marianne Williamson segment is like a dual segment.
Yeah,
like,
we can do that.
we both got a lot to say on that. I'll pass to you, CJ, if you want to introduce it. And I actually got to get out a little bit early. This will be my last segment, if that's okay.
Yeah, this is fine. This is fine.
So I'll stay for this last.
Did you do a video for this one? You didn't do a video for Marianne Williamson. You did an AOC video. Yeah, I'm going to cover that.
Yeah, the AOC video was, and I have one come out today where I'm pretty much do a shorter, catchier version of the NDA story. So that should be coming out later today. So watch out for that. So CJ, I'll pass to you for the Marianne segment. I'm going to have a lot to say on that, so it's kind of like a dual segment. So.
Yeah. So I'll just introduce it, and then we'll show receipts as we go. But let's bring up this Marianne Williamson segment right here. And now, so if you've been following RBN, you know that we are one of the things that we're famous for is not just community service, but we had Marianne Williamson on the show, and it didn't go. Well, in hindsight, I think now I'm like, it worked out. Let's just put it that way. It worked out for us. But we spotted this particular person out. And just like Nick spotted John Fetterman, and what does Nick say all the time? One of the first things when I hear a new progressive, what do they stand on? Palestine. And that's what we did. And that was one of the first things we spotted with Marianne Williamson. It was Ukraine and it was Palestine. Go ahead with your preface, sir, if you want to add something.
Yeah, isn't it funny that I was telling people there were giant red flags with Marianne Williamson regarding how she spoke about Israel Palestine, and I was trying to explain this to Bree when Bree brought us on RB, and she's like, I don't understand why you guys keep calling Marianne Williamson a Zionist. I'm like, oh, Bree, sweet some child. Marianne Williamson constantly says stuff like Israel has the right to defend itself. She used to say stuff like that all the time. Like she used to speak out against BDS because she felt like it was an unfair attack against Jewish people. She said that the Iron Dome is a deterrence against Palestinian aggression. So maybe that's her speaking out against the Palestinian resistance. She said a very red flag shit all the time. And when there were this big circle jerk because Marianne Williamson attended Crystal Ball's wedding, so that made Breaking Points and everyone who wanted access to Marianne Williamson and Breaking Points to cover her uncritically. They wasn't mentioning this. I even went on Bad Faith. We went on Bad Faith, and I explained to her, I like, bro, the language that Marianne Williamson using, justifying the occupation that Israel has of the Palestinian people, is deeply problematic. But that was before October 7th, CJ. Before October 7th, this wasn't a worthy litmus test. So despite Marianne Williamson's very problematic takes on Israel, many of them which she deleted on Twitter that we exposed on the show before because it was so deeply embarrassing. They were like, oh, you guys just want to tear down a progressive. You guys want to tear down another progressive. You guys just don't want to go through a Democratic candidate. The amount of heat we got for calling out Marianne Williamson on this very basic thing. I called her out on the bullshit regarding the two-state solution, and we see why it would never work. Like, you can't have a two-state solution when one of the states is a fascist state that would never allow the other state to exist. People are like, well, technically, you could have a two-state solution if Israel were full of fucking unicorns, sunshine, and rainbows. You know, technically, if you replace the entire Israeli population with people that are fucking reasonable, then technically, no. If what we do, you look at the current situation as is right now, with the current situation with, the criticism that Netanyahu is getting from the Israeli people is that they are not bloodthirsty enough. So you guys are going to transfer into society and make it viable to respect the Palestinian state. No, what you do is you bring these fascists to heel and force them to live in one state under equal rights under the law. I can't believe 23 that controversial to say that you should have one state equal rights under the law. Marianne Williamson didn't agree with it. Right? But anyway, that's a long preface. I'll pass to you, CJ. Anyway, the point being, we called out Marianne Williamson as problematic. This clip came out. Apparently, this person is extremely popular on Instagram or whatever. This interview dropped, and this shit was so embarrassing. Marianne Williamson went immediate fucking damage control mode. And I mean, like, this person gets a ton of views apparently. CJ, like I didn't know.
I didn't know that.
He's not in this universe. He's not into the Instagram. There's like she's in the young people space, whatever. She's a big name. She apparently named Lauren. People like she's well known. So Marianne Williamson really fucked up on a really big platform. Remember, Marianne Williamson only did good among these young platforms. And this person who's extremely popular, Lauren, who interviewed her, apparently she's like, oh, I thought Marianne Williamson was good. Now I got second guessed her now. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass to you. Let's get to the video. There was a giant blunder. This interview that Marianne Williamson did was a disaster. I don't know what you expect, but go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, hold on. Close the door. Damn. Sorry about that. All right. So this is Sabby's tweet here.
Oh, Lauren is sorry. I don't want to read his comments, CJ, so we had context.
Yeah,
Lauren is famous for her music. Yes, Marianne Williamson did reference that. I guess I don't know what she is. Lauren is famous for her music career with her former group, Fifth Harmony. Let me see if I can pull this up. I know you got some stuff going in the background. Let's see if I can find it. If that can help you out here. Let's see. Here, let me pull this because I got it for. Oh no, this is that's her apology tour. I can pull it up. CJ got some family shit going in the background. I have the same receipt. Just give me a second, guys.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm right here.
Here it is. It's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. So here is Sabby's a tweet, and then I'll play the video. There's a couple of videos. I'm going to start with this one. Why are you using AIPAC talking points? From the river to the sea does not mean the eradication of Jewish people. This is about the liberation of Palestinian people who's been eradicated right now, or who's being eradicated right now. Palestinians have no power. And let's listen to this. This is one of, I think I have 3 clips. You may have more. I'm sure this is longer than a couple of minutes, but apparently this is a very large platform. Just a shout out, we just been notified StreamYard does have Instagram Live now, so we will be streaming live on Instagram soon.
Jesus Christ, bro, there's 21,000 likes on this video. That's how big. And there's 327 comments just on the Instagram video. So yeah, definitely a big platform. So this is gonna tank Marianne's campaign. Like all the interviews of her being exposed, like on our show and others, her platform, Parent the Singer, is way bigger than ours. But let's get into the video.
All right, so let's.
And if anything else, if you're saying from the river to the sea, and that's just an Islamist state.
Let me rewind it. It kind of cut off. Let me just rewind it to get that first 2 seconds that it got cut off here. Here we go.
And if anything else, if you're saying from the river to the sea, and that's just an Islamist state, that is calling for the eradication of Israel, and it is calling for the genocide of Jews. And I believe calling for the genocide of Jews is just as evil as calling for the as any genocide is not the idea of anyone being told go away, do not exist, is anathema to me. And I hope that you will, I've heard you enough tonight. When you do see, I trust very much your heart and your mind, Lauren. You're very, very smart. And all I can say is I hope that you will go to that part of the world someday and do see with your own eyes, because I do believe the situation is in many ways, and many of the things that you said, it's like, no, that's not the fact. And I believe that when there is a greater appreciation for the larger story, I believe you will hold it in your heart and will perhaps see some of the things that you just said a little differently.
That was terrible. Now, what I get from that, Nick, is that maybe the host is on the opposite side, like they're pro-Palestinian. That's the sort of vibe that I get. Now, I do have another one. Now,
yeah,
let's break down what she says. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sarah, but you gotta notice how she said call for Jewish genocide with she equates call for liberation with calls for genocide, which is a textbook colonial liberal point of view, which is why we said it was always absurd that the vanguard left, that Breaking Points and all these people that pushed her, they wanted her to be the representative of the left. As she is anti-colonialization. This is what people who are pro-colonialists, they always equate the fight against colonialism with genocide. And that is what this psyop about this chant is about. If you are okay with living in one state where everyone is equal under the law, you will be safe. If you got your settlement in your land through an act of genocide and violence, no, you absolutely do not deserve the right to exist. I actually didn't see that clip, but I did see this clip before. That's a horrible answer. You're going to see throughout the course of this conversation. That's why we had strong, rigorous debate. There are people who canceled us because I refuse to allow anyone to get away with propping up the charlatan as a representative of the left. Who even cares if this person debates Biden? That's another argument I made. Who cares? Because he sucks. Even if she debated Biden, what are they going to do? Fucking talk about how much we should fund Ukraine and Nazis? Are they going to agree on Israel and Palestine? Like, why would you even want her as a representative of the left? But so many people in the PNC left did a disservice to their audience because they're friends with Marianne Williamson. They attended a wedding with Marianne Williamson. They allowed Marianne Williamson to give them compliments to the point where it loosened and destroyed their coverage, their integrity of their coverage of her. Because the people who covered her completely uncritically, completely avoiding the topic of Israel-Palestine. And when they did interview her, they held her hand, avoid questions that would make her look bad, and they will kind of like feed her the answers. And this is what happens when you don't. And I think this is a clip I see. And one thing I want to say to preface this clip. And you notice in the last clip, Marianne Williamson is a psychopath of the highest order. She realized she can't accuse this person of mansplaining, so she attempts to do the same thing she attempted to do with Savvy when she was on our show. The same thing she did to Bree, the same thing she did to Crystal, the same thing she did to the Vanguard, to coerce them to give her a softball interview. Where you got in every interview, you're gonna see in the beginning, you notice how she always fluff her guest up?
Yeah.
She always tries to disarm them before feeding them bullshit. And then when it didn't work to me, I was like, I don't give a fuck what you say. I'm not holding you account. She panicked, called me a mansplainer, and then she bailed on the interview. And you saw what happened with Jimmy. When Jimmy didn't fall for that shit. It goes backwards when people who she don't deem worthy put back on her. So let's get to the clip. You guys see what I'm talking about.
Things that you just described were simply not the case. Israel is not an occupying force in Gaza. Israelis can't even go into Gaza.
Now, listen to what she's saying. She thinks she's a lawyer. She's trying to be literal. Israel is not an occupying force in Gaza. Is Gaza inside of Palestine, and Israel's occupying Palestine? But she's trying to say Israel is not occupying pre this war. It is not occupying Gaza because it's ran by Hamas. That's what she's trying to say. You see how she's trying to split hairs of a hair? And I would say they still occupy Gaza if they can't go anywhere. Just because you're not physically in the concentration camp, but if you are on all of the borders, it's ridiculous. Go ahead.
What do you call it when you control the flow of food, the control of resources, and the movement of human beings in an area? If that's not an occupation, nothing is. Like, you literally bastardizing the term, which Marianne Williamson does, because Marianne Williamson weaponizes her stupidity. Yes, just like Anna Kasparian, the same way we are strongly against her. People are like, why don't you leave her alone? No, we are strongly against her because we can't allow any illusion of this dumb charlatan being a leader of the working class, any anti-imperialist movement, because she's trying to cultivate a dumb left, just like Anna Kasparian, where words mean nothing. Colonialization means nothing. What it means to be occupied means nothing. She's trying to render these words meaningless because if you completely bastardize what truth is, what words means, and make it hard to be a resistance. She's here to infiltrate the left, strip the meaning of words away, and make us an ineffective resistant movement, aka the job of the entire professional managerial left and every single person who propped up Marianne Williamson. Like, just unbelievable stupidity to say that Gaza is, like, you gotta see her reaction. Like it's one of them things that is so stupid you don't even know what to say to it. Like, it's like
yeah, I know what you mean. 2 + 2 = elephant. Like what you say? Yeah, you thrown off.
I think you lose me, man. You think Florida's a part of the United States? You think Florida's a part of the United States, CJ? What the fuck? And you know, you see how sure I am saying it. You'd be like, yeah, nigga, Florida is part. What the? That's what she's doing to me. Like, that's how obvious. Gaza's not occupied by Israel. This is so crazy.
Yeah, but what's weird is this tells me she's not that sophisticated in her critical thinking skills, because all you would have to do is look at all the protests that have been going on and look at how they've been talking about the polling that has been going on. Then you compute social media platforms are for young people, specifically Instagram and TikTok are for younger people than like Facebook and Twitter, for example. There's a lot of younger people on Instagram and TikTok. So put together, young people are out fucking protesting this. College campuses, that's where the protests are. This is a young person. Why? I don't understand. What is the calculation to come on here? Is what the question is, the point that I'm making before we play this video. What is the campaign calculation to come on this show when you have this position? Go ahead.
She's so fucking smug, bro. She thinks she's so smart. She thinks she's so much smarter than peasants. She thinks she can go on these shows and fucking trick, do a mental jujitsu, fucking kill you with kindness into believing her dumb shit. And then when you don't go and when you don't buy into it, when you're not fawning over her like all the embarrassments at breaking points and all the friends did, she falls apart. And you really see the true part of her, like when she showed Marcel, the ADOS reparations activist, when she showed to me, when she called me a mansplainer because I didn't fawn over her. And the level of gaslighting she does because she really believes that she's smarter than you guys. But let's continue the video.
All right, here we go.
Things that you just described were simply not the case. Israel is not an occupying force in Gaza. Israelis can't even go into Gaza. Hamas, they cannot even go in. Now the soldiers are in there because of this war that you and I both disagree with.
They're before October 7th.
Excuse me?
They were there before.
Are you serious?
No, Israel.
Are you serious? Crystal Ball, are you serious, Vanguard? Are you serious, Bree? Are you guys serious that you propped up someone to be the leader of the left who did not know that Israel did regular raids into Gaza? Are you guys serious? Like, and I know I'm an asshole, but for as embarrassing this is for Marianne Williamson, CJ, this should be embarrassing for every single person who propped her up. You know, and I looked at their timelines. All the people who propped up Marianne Williamson, you want to know what they're not tweeting about? I saw Due Distance is like they talking about this right now too. Like everyone left Twitter was talking about this, and the people who propped up Marianne Williamson, they're like, ain't saying shit, nigga. I'm gonna delete my tweets. You gonna pretend they never. You guys should be ashamed of yourself. You understand? Because these same people canceled us. These same people hate our guts because we came out against this fucking dipshit.
You know what didn't age well?
Go ahead, CJ.
My bad. You know what didn't age well? When people say, yeah, I disagree with her in Palestine, but she's good on everything else. You know, that didn't age well. You said those things not knowing, just like with a third party, and I'll give you an example. You said those things not knowing this shit was about to pop off in Palestine. Yeah. And then the shit popped off. Now you have to pay for your position that Palestine is not some sort of eliminating policy that eliminates the person from support. You have to answer for that now that you see 20,000 dead bodies. You have to answer for that, Nick.
Dude, to back up the point, that was a fucking central theme of the show pre-October 7th. if you was to ask us to put like maybe 10 things that we cover, one of my personal things would be, I'm tired of the POC left pretending that Palestine is an issue they can sacrifice. How many segments, how many rants I went on about the professional managerial class left, the Vanguard left, the Marianne Williamson left, sacrificing Palestinians to get along with Democrats. And now this shit coming ahead, the receipt came due, and RB we look better than ever because we got this draw on day one. And now all of a sudden, all these people going through fucking makeovers. They all of a sudden, these people now care about Israel, Palestine more than ever before. Meanwhile, they were supporting RFK before. They were supporting Marianne Williamson before. They were calling us purity test advocates because we cancel people on this issue, which I have done, and I'm proud of it. Anyway, I made my point.
And if you don't, and if you get it semi right, we don't cancel you, but we still critique you very hard. Like what is his name? Lamont, is it Lamont Hill? We critique very hard. He gets some of it right, but that's what it. Cornel West is another one when he was trying to both sides the issue. This is an issue you have to get 100% right. Period.
Yep.
Cannot even go. I'm not in any way arguing that the blockade of Gaza was not a good thing. However, Hamas, not all of the misery of the Gazans is due to Israel.
Yes, it is.
If Israel was not in Palestine, no Palestinian would be miserable. Marianne, go ahead, Nick.
Dude,
if you're gonna chime in.
This is
She's terrible.
Dude,
she's terrible.
And this is the mindset of the most psychotic neocons and war criminals of all time. You guys realize that? You guys know during the genocide of the Native American people, what did white colonialists say? Damn, man, it was a shame that we had to kill all the Native Americans. If only you guys didn't have those hot-blooded Native Americans that fucking made a mistake of fighting back against us. Don't blame us for killing everybody. Kill the people who raised their guns and killed our white women. You can trace this same ideology, this disgusting colonial ideology that Marianne Williamson projecting on every single colonial violent project in Western history. The idea that the people who are victimized, they're victimized because of the resistance. If only the resistance didn't fight back, they would be living great, happy, fucking oppressed lives. That is what the Social Democrats believe at their core. That is what liberals believe at their core. They believe that colonized people should be thankful for the progress that we live for today. We got all this cool technology, we got all these cool toys, and if people live bastardized lives, they live lives with no dignity, they should be okay with that sacrifice for the greater sake of humanity. No one should be attempting to overthrow the status quo because you guys should be thankful to live in the current status quo of today. And if you fight against the current status quo, you are a terrorist and you are someone worthy of being condemned. And what Marianne Williamson is saying here is not just someone getting the issue right. It's her repeating the most disgusting version of colonialism, white supremacy, where you blame the people for resisting their own oppressor. What she said is as disgusting as it gets. And I'll read, this is a great tweet. I'm glad he had it. This is our friend Caitlin Johnson. I'll read a tweet if you don't mind.
Yeah. Let me go with it. My bad.
Marianne Williamson saying Gaza wasn't occupied because Israeli forces weren't there. It's like saying a prisoner is free because the warden isn't technically in the prison cell with him. I love Caitlin Johnstone. I couldn't say it better myself. Israel was and is exerting total control over Gaza airspace, waters, and border. That's occupation. That's what I was saying earlier. If what's happening in Gaza is not occupation, nothing is. You gotta notice how they bastardize in terms. If that's not occupation, what is? If Palestinians don't have the right to armed resistance, CJ, then who does? You guys see, that's how my mind works. That's how I'm able to see through stuff. I guess that's why I advocate for you guys to. Ask the follow-up question. If your belief is true, then what? If you do that, you can debunk what these people say all the time. But CJ, I think you want to play something. So
yeah, this is the one, Caitlin. I believe this is a different clip. This is from the one that Caitlin commented on.
I hope someday that you'll go to Israel.
Oh no, this is. Hold on, let me see.
Yeah, that's
many of the things that you just said.
Yeah, this is the same one.
You see her reaction when she said you should go to Israel?
Look at her face. Look at her face right there.
Play that part again. It's going again. Play that part again since you already have it up. That shit was funny to me.
I
don't
hope
know this
someday
is, but where
that
she
you'll go
should be
to Israel.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we got to find out who she is.
I hope someday that you'll go to Israel. Many of the things that you just
So you gotta know I'm boomer adjacent. I'm very out of touch with pop culture. That's why I'm boomer adjacent. So I don't know who she is, but apparently she's based. Like she's based.
She's pretty based, yeah. And here goes. I just wanted to play. It's the same clip, so I'm not gonna play. The clip is just what Danny Hyphon says. Shout out to Danny. We got to get him on the show. We're trying to schedule him. We're in contact with him. We're just trying to get out a date with him. Marianne Williamson says Israel doesn't occupy Gaza despite one controlling the flow of people, control of people, water, food, and fuel. 2, ethnically cleansing the land with genocide. 3, Gaza being a concentration camp. She's riding with Biden on this issue. And then Pat, the burner, says, big fucking yikes. Sometimes Marianne Williamson doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. Her default position always start as pretty in line with the establishment, then people educate her. And that is spot on. That's why I saved it. Because that is so spot on. You can tell she doesn't have any idea what's going on this topic. And then she just starts with the establishment line. She knows that. She knows how to Google and go, oh, the establishment saying this, so that's what I'm going to go with. And then in the interview, that's what sort of she starts to get educated. Oh, the left doesn't like that. Oh, okay. Let me write this down. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead.
That's
go
why
ahead.
it was so absurd. And me and CJ, we was going collectively crazy watching the Marianne Williamson push by people who are like friends with us doing this shit. Because why would you put someone who has no leftist principles? Like, you gotta know how we get in the right position. We don't need anyone to show us what position to get into. Because there's certain leftist principles. There's an ideology. There's a belief. It's clear Marianne Williamson has none of that. So why would you want someone who have no leftist principles or no ideological beliefs? Why would you want them to be the leader of the left movement who debating vicious neoliberals? That it was an absurd premise, and it's clear that she's just doing an act pretending to be Bernie Sanders, but she don't have no roots in leftist ideology or principle, which is why she followed the Ukraine talking points. And you notice how she repeats the same talking points regarding from the river to the sea as Morning Joe does. Because as I said months ago, Marianne Williamson gets her information 100% from MSNBC and CNN. And it's clear when she repeats her talking points. I have a few funny things to share
I was just checking to see if any of her supporters had finally commented on anything, and it doesn't look. Oh, wait. Oh, so she got the backlash and she started.
This is why I was literally just.
Go ahead. You play it because I'm having a little technical issue. So you go ahead and pull it up then because I'm having a bit of a technical issue.
She caught so much shit, fam, over this. You saw the fact that this person is way more famous than we are, has a giant stream, and I knew she was famous because you saw a lot of these. I saw a lot of these tweets flowing around. You guys see how they're calling her by her first name?
Yeah.
You think after telling Lauren to go to Israel, it wouldn't get any worse? So look at this. This got 1 million views.
Wow,
bro. If you guys think that Marianne Williamson botching the Jimmy Dore interview was a big deal, technically it wasn't. Marianne Williamson botching our interview wasn't a big deal because our audience already didn't support her for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't really no downside. It's only upswing for her going. This was so bad because Marianne Williamson went on a platform where a ton of Zoomers watched her. And not only that, remember the one thing that the Vanguard and many Marianne Williamson supporters was pretending was a good thing? They were bragging over a ton of Zoomers who was being misled by breaking points and other people who actually liked Marianne Williamson. And based on my research, apparently Lauren had a positive view of Marianne Williamson going in. Apparently she does not now, Because so she brought Marianne Williamson on to be like, hey, I have a Zoomer audience. I'm young, you know what I mean? Let's bring out Marianne Williamson. I heard she's popular. Hey, Marianne Williamson, this thing going on, this thing in Israel going on. What do you think about it? Oh my God. Oh my God. Then they learn really who Marianne Williamson is, because these people were following people who was misleading their audience, not telling who she really was. So the reason why I shared this because we already saw this clip. This is one version of this. This got over 3,000 likes, over 1 million views. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because it was a PR disaster. Like, this is way worse than the Jimmy Dore interview. Way worse.
I haven't seen this. I haven't seen this yet.
Oh my God! I love that you fact.
Yeah. So let me say something before you play it.
Go ahead.
Because I'm glad I did that, even though you had this, because otherwise I wouldn't even discovered that she responded. So I prepare for my segments so far in advance. I miss a lot of updates, so I prepare for this so far in advance. So I'm happy that you kind of do a sweep and get all the most current stuff. So I haven't seen this. I'm going in blind. Let's see how this goes here.
And I'm gonna find Sabby's tweet. I'm sure I retweeted if I remember right. She responded to Sabby. I ratioed her. I
have Sabby's tweet. If it's the original Sabby tweet, I have it. So okay,
yeah, she responded to Sabby's tweet before I get to the video because this is her damage control. What you doing? Look at this fucking ratio, fam.
Oh my God.
Over 100 comments, 11 likes. She said, listen to what I said again, Sabby. The quote I used was Sinwar's statement that it will be in, with all caps, Islamist state from the river to the sea. Bro, she thought it was a good response. Why do you put Islamist in all caps? For one, that is not true, Marianne Williamson, you dumbass. You know that Palestinians got a lot of Christians? You know that? Oh, you don't? You don't know a lot of things, don't you? And despite the fact that Marianne Williamson don't know that much about stuff, she had the audacity to believe that she should be president. What does that say? TJ, how many people ask me to run? People leave comments on every video. People tweet about me, Nick, why don't you run? Every time people ask me to run, I'm like, bro, really? Me? That's just the natural humility that most people have. And I'm not bragging, I'm not hyping myself up, but most people are humble to the point where they're like, man, I don't think I should be the leader of this big movement. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. There's a lot of second guessing. Meanwhile, Marianne Williamson's dumbass, not knowing anything, is like, I volunteer. I want to be the leader. I don't know anything though. I don't even know that, but make me the leader. What does that say about her? The fact that she's a volunteer herself to be a leader of a movement she knows nothing about.
And she's getting destroyed in her comments. And I must say, the reason she replied to Sabby is because she knows Sabby can do some real damage. And I'm so happy. This is the reason why I don't know if you remember this a long time ago. I was like, yeah, I think Sabby should be the face of RBN. It's for this reason. She thought Sabby was her friend. She thought Sabby was her friend. Now Sabby's nice and polite. Yeah, but if you come with that capitalist bullshit, that white supremacy bullshit, nigga, she gonna call your fucking ass out like she did here. You thought she had another female friend. That's, you know how she tried to play the female thing, or she tried to lean on that anytime she's in these interviews. Like she tried to do that with you and try to split you and Sabby in that interview. But Sabby called her out and she's trying to respond with lies. I've never seen a ratio like this, 11 to 200.
Bro, both me and Sabby destroyed her. Bro, Sabby ruined her. I was in this early, so I didn't see the final count until now. Sabby ruined. So I got 2 ratios over Marianne Williamson, apparently. So she said, I'm going to finish her statement. The quote I used was, and I'm doing this order for a reason, because this came before the video. There's a reason why I'm doing this order.
Oh, because so Sabby's the one who made this happen.
It wasn't just Sabby. To be clear, it wasn't just Sabby. There was another tweet that went viral. There was a lot of tweets that went viral. But she responded to Sabby because she knew Sabby. She was on Sabby's shows before, and she had engagement with Sabby before. Before Sabby turned on her, right? So she's like, "Oh no, Sabby turned on me too." Like maybe she didn't know that Sabby already bashed her multiple times, but she realized it was so bad that people she had friendly relationships with before are turning on her. So her team texts her late at night, like, "Bro, Marianne, shit's kind of going bad for us after that interview. So Marianne Williamson gets off her couch after drinking wine, rushes on Twitter, and she sees her name, she Googles her name, and she's in horror, seeing the people that her, which leads her to comment on Abby. Bro, you can tell the panic in her voice when she tweeted this out. She even put in caps on Islamist. No, I was talking about the Islamists. Anyway, she says, where do you think Jews fit into an Islamist state? This conversation cannot be about the elimination of anyone. It has to be about the justice for everyone. And this is what I used to clap her with. You guys see how I say, well, where do Jews fit? Well, this conversation need to be about this. This conversation need to be about that. No, Marianne. The conversation is about ending the occupation of Palestine, and that is it. You gotta see how Zionists, oh, what about this? What about, we gotta have a conversation about this. What about justice? What about the Jewish people? Nope. It's about absolutely none of that, Marianne. It's about one thing, justice for the Palestinian people. Now, let me get to Sabby's response, because she was responding to Sabby. Sabby like that. Me and Sabby always hype each other up on Twitter.
And let me just say this, because I'm just going to take a little victory lap here, Nick. Yep. Because I called this. I said Sabby should be the face, and let me tell you why. It's exactly this is the point, and she is. Now I know. I'm just saying this was a year ago.
Yeah, I hear you.
A year ago, and because Sabby has the ability to get into the interview, to have the interview with Ro Khanna. He would never have an interview with us, but she gets the interview, and she still asks the questions, just not as abrasive as she would never agree to an interview if it was just me and Rome. She'll be like, you and Rome, get the fuck out of here. You get what I'm saying? But to Sabby, so to have that sort of quiet assassin is so important. And I'm so happy she is the face of RBN, killing the game. And I love it. Go ahead, Nick.
So you got to see Marianne Williamson's strategy is essentially to deny what she said. Serious, because so she was caught being an unhinged genocidal Zionist in front of untold thousands of people on Instagram Live. So now she's like, oh, don't believe your lying ears and your lying eyes. So then she declines what she said here. And so Sabby says, I watched the entire interview. Even the interviewer disagreed with you. This is the same talking point billionaires like Bill Ackman and Zionists are saying, this is not okay. So you know Marianne Williamson is sweating because Sabby, I ratioed her, but you see Sabby power drives her. 366 versus 11 likes. Marianne Williamson, the presidential candidate, has 11 likes on the tweet. Things going great.
Wow.
So I'm sorry, I want to show you guys that panic tweet earlier because she had an exchange with our RBN family. She had an exchange with Sabby, so I had to show you guys that. And that happened before this video. So she woke up and she got the alert. She's like, hey, Marianne Williamson, we on DEFCON 5. Nigga, the Zoomers are roasting you. We need to come out with a response video. So her plan after having this campaign, well, I should say another campaign ending event. But I would say this is like the true apocalypse. Like, you know what I mean? She got hit with a little comments here and there. The Jimmy Dore interview was a little bit of comment, but this one was massive because the audience, and that's the only reason I say I'm not Jimmy Dore has obviously a massive audience, but he didn't have an audience of Marianne Williamson followers. You know what I mean? The reason why this is way worse than anything else is because Lauren she got big support from Zoomers. And when you look at Twitter, I don't got time to show you guys all the receipts. There was a ton of people like, oh my God, I didn't know Marianne Williamson sucked like this. Oh my God, Marianne Williamson, you lost my support. I will show you guys some of the replies. There was a lot of people who liked Marianne Williamson, or a lot of Zoomers who didn't know her, who she exposed herself in during this interview. So let's play the video. This is the strategy where she said, there's a great misrepresentation of my views. Bouncing around the internet today. So you guys see this is the panic. So her strategy to approach this is to tell all you people, you're fucking liars. I didn't fucking say that, okay?
President John F. Kennedy said that if we don't put an end to war, war will put an end to us. And let us make no mistake about it. The situation currently in the Middle East, if uncontrolled, could lead to World War III. The bombing must end. We need a ceasefire. And President Biden's commitment to Israel should not include more and more commitment to brute force, more and more commitment to military action, more and more commitment such as sending ships, like that's going to protect our national interests or theirs. I call for a ceasefire not only as a candidate for the Democratic nomination for the presidency. I am a Jew, remember, and I understand the fury of the Israelis in this moment. But this is not a moment for us to think only in terms of an alliance with this people or that people. We must be in alliance with humanity right now. This is a call to all humanity to find another way. This is a call to all of us to get out of our silos, to realize that an innocent citizen of Israel and an innocent citizen of Gaza, they are both victims of a mentality which does not serve. And it is that mentality.
She is saying nothing right now.
We need a ceasefire. And
can you pause it right here? Now, I do need to say this because this is so telling. So she gets the backlash. Now think about, you get backlash, and what is the key thing she's saying in this video? Ceasefire. This tells me, this indicates that social democrats absolutely understand that their virtue signaling about Palestinians is just to gain support or to cover up their support for Israel. Why is she coming out as to say we need a ceasefire in response to you talking about from the river to the sea, unless she understands I need to go out and show that I'm down with the Palestinians? Even though I'm voting and sending weapons, I need to, even though I still think that this is not an occupation, let me go out and say words to mean that I'm down with humans not being dying. That's all she sees this as. Go ahead.
So, and you guys are gonna see this doesn't help her because many people point out that she doesn't address anything in this video that she's getting criticized for. And so when people criticize you for being a dumbass for saying Gaza is not occupied by Israel, which is a disqualifying statement. That is a disqualifying statement. So you should come out with video explaining yourself. What do you mean when you said Israel is not occupying Gaza? But you know what she did instead? She came out with a video and said, I support the ceasefire. I heard the ceasefire was popular. You guys know I support the popular thing that all the popular people support. And people didn't fall for it. But I'll let it finish before I continue with the rest of my critique because there's a lot to be had here.
Should be given the chance to speak. All of us must remove the hatred for anyone from our hearts right now and speak out of love for humanity and the future of humanity. We need a ceasefire, and we need it now. And when the bombing ends, then we can talk about what to do from an internationalist perspective to save those hostages. And it could just be to save the world.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Who does this work on?
Ceasefire. Ceasefire now.
What is that supposed to mean? And understand, when I tweeted, so Sabby showed us the video. That's how we all found out about this video initially. Sabby texted us. And when I tweeted it out, somebody posted a video saying Marianne Williamson supports ceasefire. Now, I think it was this video. I didn't even click on it because I didn't care. I was like, what the fuck? What does that do compared to what she's saying? What does that do? You want a ceasefire? What does that do? So I'm sure that was this video because it looks very similar.
Yeah, it was. And I cannot emphasize enough, because this is another point on this. This is exactly why we brought on the Palestinian Community Network, because they explained before how a ceasefire is not good enough. Now, we got to be strategic and we got to be smart. It's not a good idea to attack people who call for a ceasefire because it's saving lives, right? Not a good strategy to do that.
Right, exactly.
That's just dumb to do that. Not a good, you should be nice to people who want to save lives, right? But the strategy is to end the occupation. So Marianne Williamson, who thinks she is killing it, doesn't even say that. I'm asking you guys, at what point in this video does she say end the occupation? She does not. And look at this part right here. She says, I'm a Jew, and I understand the fury of the Israelis. Huh? So you understand the fury of the Israelis, but you don't understand the fury of the Palestinians? You guys see this Zionist garbage? I guess I'm an asshole. Maybe I'm too in the weeds into this. I acknowledge that. But these language choices, I can't unsee. So she understands the fury of the Israeli, but she don't understand the fury of the resistance in which she strongly condemns. So you guys see she took a pretty big fucking ratio on this tweet as well. I want to see why I'm at. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. So that's 2 body bags. I didn't see none of the numbers until now. So that's 2 body bags. You know, she's going to respond to Savvy, but she's not going to respond to me, even though I ratioed the shit out of her here, apparently. 1.2 likes versus her 900, where I simply respond, unless your position on Israel-Palestine is ending the occupation of Palestine, which it is not, nobody on the left should take you seriously, because no matter how many platitudes no one should take you seriously, no matter how many platitudes you come up with, right? So fuck, I ratioed Marianne Williamson twice in like 1 hour, apparently. Now I'm gonna just shortly go through some of the responses. A lot of this is new because I saw this very early. This got hundreds of more responses than I originally saw. Who else ratioed her? CJ, you have anything else you want to share on this as well?
Yeah, because there is another response, Nick. Let me put it up right here.
I'll read this.
The host.
Oh, go ahead, CJ.
This is the host. This is the host is seeing she's getting destroyed, so she comes out.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh,
yes, the host comes out and says this. Now, I hope the might be doing something unintentional here. She could be bringing more people, more of her audience to come in here and ratio Marianne Williamson, but it looks like she's defending her. Yeah, go ahead. It looks like she's defending her, but go ahead.
Dude, I just skimmed the first 3 lines. Holy shit. So, man, Lauren, I really want to give you credit here. I really wanted to. Hi, everyone. I know that video clip of Marianne and I speaking about the Palestine-Israel issue is going viral. She did not realize she ended her campaign. Remember what I said earlier? Based on what I saw, I had hints, and I told you guys it was just a hint that she liked Marianne Williamson based on what I saw doing research for the segment. So now she's like, holy shit, I accidentally ended her fucking campaign. Let me read this. I realize I'm speaking now about the Palestine-Israel issue is going viral, but I really want us to speak about in terms of nuance. Oh, here it comes. Here it comes, fam. Oh, come on, Lauren. I was rooting for you this time.
Class, Nick. She has
come on. You guys said she was a singer, right?
Yeah, 4.2 million followers, artist, writer, singer. This is about class, Nick.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's see if she wins us back over as I read this. But right now, it's looking bad. This is why I don't follow celebrities, man. Like these Zoomers, she's way more popular. She got millions. Why do you guys care what she said? She exposed Marianne and she come out with a tweet doing PR for her. Anyway, let me read. I didn't read the whole thing. She may prove me wrong. Let's hope she prove me wrong. I want to speak in terms of nuance when it comes to the election. Marianne is the only candidate calling for a ceasefire. Oh, Jesus Christ. In either the Democratic or Republican parties. What's up with these white women in their obsession with the lesser two evil? You had the Muslim communities en masse that said that we will not support Joe Biden because the way he dehumanized Muslims in Palestine. Meanwhile, Lauren is like, let's support another Zionist. Anyway, let me continue. I don't want to. Let me read. I don't want to.
Remember, if she's a singer signed to a record label, she's doing what DJ Khaled is doing. She in line with the Zionists who run most of these record labels.
All right, I'm gonna read the rest without interrupting. I gotta read this. I don't want to judge it without knowing the statements. I'm gonna read out without interrupting. I know I'm a fucking idiot. Marianne is the only candidate calling for a ceasefire in the Dem or Republican Party. The other two options we're talking about right now believe in wholeheartedly backing and supporting the occupation and current genocide. While I understand many of us do not agree with her in totality on this point, we are far from living in a reality where we have a perfect candidate that will meet every requirement we seek. I'm not going to interrupt. I believe.
I will chime in. You don't want to chime in. I'll chime in then because this sounds very much like the PMC white left selling out Palestinians. Remember?
Yeah.
What we were just talking about, they did, and they did it not knowing that this was going to pop off with Palestinians. But if you're still pushing this while the genocide is happening, can't really fuck with you. But go ahead, Nick. You can continue.
Dude, I just scanned the rest of it while he was talking. Oh my god, bro. Oh my god. I wanted to give you credit, Lauren. I didn't know who you was, but apparently you are a shit lib. And what she's doing is extremely malicious. So at no point did she invite Marianne Williamson on so her audience would be well informed on Marianne Williamson and her views. She brought Marianne Williamson on to do propaganda for her. Marianne Williamson is such a bad candidate that she accidentally exposed herself, and Lauren has to make this tweet because it gets worse. I just skimmed it. Listen to this. We are far from living.
So Lauren she got Lauren. She has some connection to get on this. Hey, there's a young Instagrammer live, and she has a big audience. Get me on there so I can get some more people. Yeah. So she's thinking. So she must have already knew Marianne Williamson's views. So you're saying she brought her on there to say at least she's for ceasefire, basically?
Bro, I'll tell you right now. I promise you, this is how it went. She brought her on thinking that Marianne Williamson was going to nail this issue. And that's why she was cringing and she had those physical reactions, because she could not believe how much Marianne Williamson was shit in the bed. Remember when Jordan Sheraton interviewed Marianne Williamson? And he asked her questions about Biden's corruption, and then he watched in horror as Marianne Williamson was failing the very obvious layup questions he was asking. And there was a point in that interview where Jordan Sheraton was kind of giving her the answers beforehand.
Yes.
Like, bro, I got to feed her the answer first and then answer the question. So Lauren probably thought that Marianne Williamson had some intellectual prowess of some kind. She learned that it's not the case. So let me read the comments. Sorry. I'm sure that people watching already read it at this point. But anyway, I'll read out loud for people listening only. This is so bad. We are far from living in a reality where we have perfect candidate that will meet every requirement we see. So we make it our reality, Lauren. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm so sorry. This nihilist bullshit that you get for the PMC class. We're not in a situation where we can have third parties. We're not in a situation where we can have a smart, intelligent candidate. So we gotta bow to doomerism. We gotta accept the crumbs that is given to us. You gotta see this bullshit. We are far from living in a reality where we have a perfect candidate. So we create the conditions. Oh, I can't stand these motherfuckers, man. But let me continue. This mindset is destroying the left. You guys understand? It's destroying the left. Instead of trying to create our own movement and create the change we want to see, we accept the dumbest PMC that raises their hand. Marianne Williamson is a PMC who raised her hand and fucking volunteered herself to be a leader. So why would you follow her? There's nothing telling you to follow her, Lauren. You can create your own chapters. You got a way bigger platform than we do.
Yeah, I know.
How many chapters would we have if we have 4.3 million followers? I know I'm going off the rails.
We would have probably 15, 20 chapters at least.
I'm gonna keep going, but this is unbelievable. I did not expect this part of the segment. You know how you didn't see that?
I didn't see the video. You didn't see this part.
I thought it was a win from Hava. I was like, yo, Lauren killed the game, nigga. Hell yeah, Lauren, you exposed Marianne Williamson. No. Oh my God, it's horrible. I know this is gonna be my last segment, so this is I'm crazy on this. Let me leave off. I believe Marianne is a better option than Biden, period, when we're speaking specifically to the Democratic Party and the reality of the candidates we have as options. So what Lauren wants her 4.3 million followers. Let's say she's telling the truth, CJ. Let's not try to fight her accusation. Well, she's claiming here. So she wants her 4.3 million followers to donate to a candidate, spend their time on the candidate that is running in a rigged election. So even if you believe what she's saying, she's leading her audience off a cliff, giving her audience the impression that Marianne Williamson has a chance to win a primary where they already announced the cancelization of primaries. So what the fuck is this? This is a grift. And everyone that's a part of this grift needs to be held accountable. That's why we held everyone accountable. Because you guys are leading workers to donate and materially support someone who has no chance instead of supporting mutual aid. Instead of actually supporting anything that will lead to the betterment of the workers, you guys are leading them to a candidate that has no chance. I'm going to be done when I finish. Go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
This is very similar. This is a class thing. This is very similar to Susan Sarandon retweeting Marianne Williamson. Susan Sarandon, goddamn well, no, she's not in line with Marianne Williamson, but it's her friend. I'm just going to help you out. This is obviously that, because if you read what she says here, look, I believe Marianne Williamson is the better option than Biden, period. When this is the caveat, she says, when we're talking specifically Democrat Party. So she's not saying she's a better candidate overall. She's just saying in the primary, by which you already said is a rigged primary. So that tells me if it's a rigged primary, you know this, and you're still saying she's a better option, this is just you're doing a solid. Somebody called this in, and you're just trying to do a solid. That wording is telling me her personally would not vote for Marianne Williamson. But she's trying to nice it up. She's trying to nice it up to say, okay, I know you guys don't agree with her, and I wouldn't vote for her. Absolutely not. But she's the best one in the primary. So, okay, Marianne, is that okay? I tried to nice it up. Sorry. You get what I'm saying? Like her mom or somebody called this favor in or something.
You nailed it, guys. These people in their social club do not benefit us at all. Because I told you, I skimmed ahead. I told you, this was not her bringing her on to inform her audience about who Marianne Williamson is so they can make an informed decision. This was Lauren bringing Marianne Williamson on so she can trick her audience into supporting Marianne Williamson for a favor. Because she's a very popular celebrity, a magician. She wanted to be part of the Marianne Williamson social club. Like, this is disgusting. Because you guys I see you skip ahead. Listen to this. I am highlighting her. And I did not plan this at all. I am in shambles reading this. I am highlighting her in her 2-hour live that I did with her, and I believe it is worth watching in its totality. And not just get hung up on how she reacted to a very personal and triggering topic and questioning for her. So now she's lecturing her own audience. So it's not enough that you're doing PR for her. You're now telling your audience how they should feel about it. Hey, I know she is a dumbass who's saying that Gaza wasn't occupied by Israel, right? But you should come on, man. Don't pay attention to that part of the interview. Don't pay attention to the part of the interview where I exposed her. Man, Lauren is pretty disgusting now. I'm reading this. But
very personal and very triggering. You know what else was very personal and very triggering, Nick? When slave owners had their business put out of business in 1864 with the Emancipation Proclamation. If those slave owners told a tale, they crying and have a tale, a personal tale that is very triggering to them too, Nick, to lose your livelihood overnight, or actually through months because of Juneteenth, because we didn't hear the word. But this is what this is. It's there. She's not. So Lauren apparently is not who we thought her was. But we can finish reading it so we can get out of here. We
can wrap. This is the last point I'm gonna make because she does the textbook PMC shit as I skim it. She says she is the only one. I'm skimming a little bit ahead here. She says she's the only candidate that is willing to acknowledge Palestinians as Palestinians. This is the progressive accept Palestine talking point, where we acknowledge the humanity of Palestinians. We just don't support their right to resistance. We don't support the freedom of their occupation. And Lauren, Marianne Williamson, and the rest of the boutique left, I am here to tell you the position of RB and our entire army and the rest of the left apparently is that this progressive accept Palestine shit is no longer acceptable. This thing you're doing right here where we say, we acknowledge that Palestinians are human. We believe that Palestinians should have human rights, but they should die quietly. That's the position that she's talking about right here. I finish the statement. We are not choosing perfect candidates right now. They do not exist. I'll break this down more, but I want us to be open-minded. So for real, right now, is that what she's saying? With ourselves about what's at stake here. So she is a liberal that is pushing lesser to evilism. And right now, I promise you, I don't know her overall politics. Apparently, if I were to guess, I would say that she's a full shit lib. But just for the sake of being honest and accurate, I don't know her. Let's say I don't know her. I promise you she's going to tell you guys to vote for Joe Biden next year because she's going to do this thing, the same thing she's doing right now. She's going to say, oh, come on, man, I know Joe Biden's not perfect, but we got existential threat with Donald Trump coming. That's the same thing she's doing right now. But anyway, we went a little bit long. That last part of the segment absolutely was not planned. But, man, that's a shame, man. I thought Lauren was based for a second.
That's sad.
A lot of people didn't see that follow-up post. Like, man, I don't know who Lauren is, but she's pretty good. Like, it was a good moment for Lauren. Well, apparently, she absolutely did that 100% on accident. And that to show how bad Marianne Williamson is. I didn't know that context. I thought she kind of liked Marianne. She wanted to show people who Marianne's about, but she wanted to go, no, it was just a straight up PR program. Sad and funny. But anyway, I think it was a good show. Remember my announcement I announced today for people who just joined Nick at Night season 2 will be starting next year. This year was season 1, Nick at Night. I feel like I'm getting better at production, learning a lot from CJ, Savin, and many others. So I think Nick at Night 2.0 is going to come pretty strong. Season 2 start next year. The first episode will be on January 4th. That Thursday we're doing Tuesday. We changed the date in the night. So instead of Wednesday night, it's gonna be Tuesday and Thursday night. And you guys have been asking me about that. People are like, we need Nick at Night more than once a week. So we're gonna have Nick at Night 2 times a week. And then we got Nick at Noon on Saturday. I'm gonna plan on doing about around an hour on Saturday. Maybe 3 times a month. I'm gonna take maybe 1 Saturday off a month. But about 3 Saturdays a month, I'm gonna do Nick at Noon for probably an hour. That's one of the big one of the program changes we're gonna have next year. There's gonna be a lot of change. Like we had a big year this year, a lot changed. Like when you look at us compared to last year, you're gonna see that next year as well. I got lots of plans. A lot of it I haven't talked with the group yet because not real, not material yet.
Yeah.
So you gotta follow our bin. You guys are gonna see continued evolution, continued change, the growth of chapters and all that stuff. So that's my last word. CJ, I pass to you. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, and all right, Nick, I'll read. I think we got a couple of new super chats. I'll read those in just a moment, and then I'm gonna cover this video Nick did. I have to cover it because it's and it won't be long, guys. So we won't be here for maybe another 10 minutes. But let me read the super chats, and then I shall cover the video. We got a couple of new members. Here goes one. GV Black. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not a new member. This is gifting a membership to Revolutionary Blackout. One new membership. Thank you for that. And then another one from VZ Black. Double check you liked the video. Absolutely. Hit that like button. Get us to 400 likes. We're at 329 last time I checked. This one from Sam. Thank you for the $4.99. Marianne Williamson supporters support someone who supports Nazis in Ukraine and is fascism generation, but nobody says they are Red Brown Alliance. That's absolutely spot on because look who she supports. She supports one side in Ukraine, and then she supports the opposite side in Israel or Palestine. So that is a great point, Sam. Nick, what do you mean campaign? It's a book tour. That is true. Thank you, Virtuoso, for that comment and super chat. It is not a real campaign. Like Cornel West is not running a real campaign, but Marianne Williamson is really not running a real campaign whatsoever to be elected. Next one, this one from Loca Clemente. Senate was established in Article 1. I think this comment came from, what were we talking about? This comment. The Senate. We were talking about the Senate. Oh, yeah. So I think, did I say Senate was not in the Constitution? I think this is referring to that, maybe. And if I'm wrong, my apologies, but I will correct what I said anyway. But the Senate was not in the Constitution. That was as misspoke because I'm referring to a segment we did. We had a guest on where and this is just something I already knew, but I was thinking back to what that person said, and I misspoke. I shouldn't have said that. But what is true, or what I should have said, is that the Senate was something that came up after the House of Representatives. So when they're talking about this new America, the Senate is something they thought of after, but before the country was established, of course, after the House of Representatives as a backstop, and it was going to be filled with slave owners, or the conversation was these slave owners felt like, hey, this eventually is not going to go well for us with just the House of Representatives. We need some sort of other entity as a backstop, and that is the Senate. So thank you for that. Brand new member for 9 months. And let me think of who does that guest that was here, because it was a great episode I did. Yeah, I can't remember who it was. But anyway, once I do, I'll let you know. The documentary, thank you for this super chat, Sean Moon. The documentary Unnatural Causes is free on YouTube. It talks about how capitalism gets in your body and kills you early. The capitalist system is just trying to gaslight us, saying economy is good, and that is spot on, Sean. I absolutely agree. I'll put this one back on. I won't read it because we've already covered it, but I mean, we've already read it. So let's, oh, actually this one came in. Another one came in here. Another gifted RBN membership. So thank you for those gifts. And from 2 RBN regulars here. Thank you. There's one here and one here. Thank you for those gifts. To those unsuspecting potential RBN members on YouTube. All right, so let's cover this video really quick here. Let me see. Where is the title? I know I put the title up here, or maybe I didn't. AOC hates Bernie Bros. So Bernie Bros. That's the title of this segment. So everybody, and we can start here. So if you hadn't heard, Ryan Grimm has a brand new book out. Something about the squad and something about a revolution is really, and it's not a comedy. I know the title make you think that this is somehow a comedy, but it's not. But within the pages of this book, there are some excerpts, and I'm not sure the excerpt will be shown in the video. There's some excerpts where AOC gives off that she really hates Bernie Bros, and you see in that on the screen right there, it says AOC has privately fretted about the toxicity of Bernie Bros and misogyny within left-wing politics, book reveals, and that is the headline. But let's play the video. I might play it twice. Here we go.
AOC had a much bigger problem with Bernie Bros than we thought. Ryan Grimm has a book called AOC in a Hope for a Political Revolution. AOC in the book complains about how toxic Bernie Bros are and complains about an overall misogyny problem on the left. I'm willing to support Nazis in Ukraine, but men who want healthcare in my country is where I draw the line. And it's a very interesting claim by AOC, considering she threw Me Too under the bus and voted for Tara Reade's rapist and refused to say a word about it. According to AOC, the only worthy rape victims are the rape victims that don't inconvenience the Democratic Party. Tell me more about how I'm the misogynist Bernie Bro, though, AOC. This exposes how AOC was always a shitlib at her core. AOC.
This is such a great point that Nick makes in this video, that she likes to throw around the misogynist thing. And the reason why I use the phrasing throw around is because there is some there is actual misogyny that's going on that you should be calling out, just like with this actual racism going on. Then there's people that use it as a way to shield them from something. And I believe she's using that here, because if you were all up in arms about misogyny, then why aren't you up in arms about the other misogyny called with Joe Biden and Tara Reade that Nick brings up here? So this is a great point he makes. I'll rewind it from the beginning and we'll start from the beginning here. Let's do it.
AOC had a much bigger problem with Bernie Bros than we thought. Ryan Grimm has a book called AOC in a Hope for a Political Revolution. AOC in the book complains about how toxic Bernie Bros are and complains about an overall misogyny problem on the left. I'm willing to support Nazis in Ukraine, but men who want healthcare in my country is where I draw the line. And it's a very interesting claim by AOC, considering she threw Me Too under the bus and voted for Tara Reade's rapist and refused to say a word about it. According to AOC, the only worthy rape victims are the rape victims that don't inconvenience the Democratic Party. Tell me more about how I'm the misogynist Bernie bro, though, AOC. This is
Give it this.
exposes how AOC was always a shitlib at her core. AOC hates the people that she claims she fights for. The entire time, AOC hated organizing and being around the uneducated, misogynistic poor people. The job of AOC, just as Democrats and the boutique left, is to make left-wing politics as unappealing as possible. That's why AOC and the professional managerial class left tries to tie anti-capitalism with liberal, woke identity politics. And this politics of AOC is exactly why she has an approval rating that is lower than Kamala Harris. The PMC class, like AOC and Ryan Grimm, who wrote this ridiculous book, is here to lead workers off a cliff, and left-wing movements need to avoid them at all costs.
You were murdered. Okay, you obviously weren't murdered because you're alive and you're basically intact. You weren't murdered by...
Once again, Nick with the awesome video. I gotta start making those videos. We gotta start putting them up on TikTok. But here's the headline, everybody. Oops. Right here. AOC has privately fretted about the toxicity of Bernie bros and misogyny within left-wing politics, book reveals. Let's just read a little bit of the points. AOC was more concerned about the Bernie bros during the 2020 campaign than previously known. As she endorsing Sanders, she privately fretted that they were very, very damaging for him. A new book on the squad also details her concerns with the misogyny I saw within the left. So, I mean, this person has no shame. Let's read a little bit of it, not all. Democratic Rep AOC had more concerns about Bernie bros than previously known. According to a new book, during the 2016 Democratic primary, supporters of Hillary Clinton popularized the notion that Senator Bernie Sanders were disproportionately aggressive, misogynistic white males. Let's continue. Sanders and his supporters have long viewed the characterization as unfair, pointing to the polling and election results showed the Vermont senator performing well amongst a variety of groups in both the 2016 and 2020 presidential campaign. During the 2020 primary, the New York Congresswoman publicly acknowledged some of those concerns, even as she told the host of The View that Sanders works very hard to handle the issue. But according to reports to Ryan Grimm in Ryan Grimm's book, The Squad, AOC in the Hope of a Political Revolution, that's the title that I was laughing at earlier. In the hopes of a political revolution, the New York Congresswoman thought the idea had a lot of merit and that it was hurting Sanders' prospects. It's funny how now that she's part of the establishment, she's rolling out one of the most overused establishment talking point lines against a particular group of progressives. It's funny that that's coming out, that's the case. Now, how I see it is that if she's not a CIA plant, which is a lot of people actually believe, if she's not that and she actually was changed and she was a good person in the beginning, and now she's sort of changed. Okay, I guess that would speak to her not feeling this way at the time, and now she's feeling this way. Now that I look back on it, yeah, that was the case. But if you're saying you felt this way at the time, that just tells me you've been a sellout sitting in waiting. That's what you've been this whole time. And I'll continue to kind of wind this down a little bit here. But according to reporting in Orion Group, I'm sorry, I read that part. And here's another quote. Bernie Sanders have been very, very damaging to him. And it really is frustrating to see and experience. They don't realize how influential they are. It's frustrating to feel like they are hurting him. Ocasio-Cortez said in the midst of the 2020 primary, according to the book. Quote, she also goes on to say, I feel like Warren is scooping up LGBT progressives, women, and progressives of color because of how they isolate. Now, what I actually believe is actually happening here, I don't believe she thought this at the time. What I believe is she's concocted this version of events as a way of going after the people who's going after her over strike breaking, the people who are going after her over the dome funding, dome vote, the people who are going after her over funding of Ukraine. Now, understand who the messenger is, which is Ryan Grimm. When does Ryan Grimm show up? When he's time to Captain Save a politician. So it's very curious to me that this new information is being delivered by this particular messenger. What types of message does this particular messenger delivers? Establishment messages. She also worried that the behavior of Sanders supporters were forcing an unnecessary choice between class analysis and race analysis through their behavior, not such policy. Now, my God, forcing an unnecessary choice between class analysis and race analysis. You mean to tell me that's coming from a socialist? Why don't you tell me you're not a socialist without saying you're not a socialist? Let me blow this up and go to that part again. Forcing an unnecessary choice between class analysis and race. Scroll on. I don't. Yeah, let me read a little more. But then, an influential politician in her own right, her endorsement was seen as critical as Sanders and Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts competing to claim the progressive mantle during the 2020 race. Ocasio-Cortez ultimately endorsed Sanders. So what I believe this is, and maybe the book is doing this, the book in this article is whitewashing AOC to be presented to the establishment. Like, forgive me for all these things. Yeah, I did this. Yeah, I was doing this with Bernie Sanders, but forgive me for all of those things. And that's what I see this as. And I mean, and I'm only saying the book because this is from the book. So if this is the book is saying, maybe that's what the book is about. I'll read this last part. The woman later said it was not smart for Sanders' campaign to publicize what appeared to be an endorsement from controversial podcaster Joe Rogan, saying the Rogan alienated so many people and platforms, alt-right figures. That last quote solidifies to me, and the fact that it's being delivered by Ryan Grimm, this is an establishment message. Ryan Grimm is whitewashing AOC for her future as an establishment figure. So it's the other way around. Just discussing, but that is what Ryan Grimm does, and this is what he's known for, and it just looks like he's continuing to do that. Let's go here. Let me see. Let me bring something else up here. Now, that's going to be it on that subject. Let me see. There's one other subject here. Yeah. Not a subject, but another video. I could have sworn there was a video I wanted to play. The Vivek Ramaswamy video. Town hall. Let's play some Vivek Ramaswamy town hall stuff. That's what I want to get to, since he's one of the main faces on the thumbnail. We kind of have to cover this story. So let me cover this. Vivek does a CNN town hall. Now I wanted to do this with Nick, but Nick had to take off early. So let's cover it now, and we're going to get to that right away. No breaks. Vivek's, now we're not watching the whole thing. I got clips already pre-selected from, he actually posted. So the clips that Vivek posted, we'll cover a couple of them, some of them good, some of them bad, meaning some of these things you may agree with, some of these other things you may not agree with. We'll get to the January 16th later. Let's start out with, we'll kind of climax up. We'll start out with one of the more mundane sort of interactions, the shorter ones. This is about the Federal Reserve. Here's the question, and then let's listen to what Vivek said.
She says that she's currently registered as a Democrat, but now intends to switch parties and is planning to participate in the Republican caucuses and register as a Republican. She's undecided on which candidate to support. Nicole?
Thank you and welcome. I'm going to throw it back to the United States and talk a little bit about how you feel about the growing differential between the top 1% and the middle class in the US, and how you plan on addressing it in your presidency.
Yeah, great question. And to tell you the truth, I don't feel great about it. A lot of this is the product of the Federal Reserve, actually. Seems like a technical subject a lot of people don't like to talk about. I think this is fundamental. So the Federal Reserve has, since the late...
Let me hear the question again here.
In your presidency.
Yeah, great.
A little bit about how you feel about the growing differential between the top 1% and the middle class in the US, and how you plan on addressing it in your presidency.
The top 1% in the middle class. To answer that, he brings up the Federal Reserve. You know who brings up the Federal Reserve and complains about the Federal Reserve? Millionaires and billionaires and owners, not workers. So I'm curious to hear the rest of his answer, but it's absolutely, just from those few words, it's absolutely not answering a question from a worker's perspective, and it's not answering a question of inequality. There is the starting point of this answer, or the answer to this question. If the Federal Reserve is part of that answer, it's maybe reason number 100. Not at all the top reason. So let's listen to what he says, though.
Yeah, great question. And to tell you the truth, I don't feel great about it. A lot of this is the product of the Federal Reserve, actually. Seems like a technical subject a lot of people don't like to talk about. I think this is fundamental. So the Federal Reserve has, since the late 90s, taken on the role of playing effectively God for the financial system for a lot of that period, raining money from on high like manna from heaven. We've been skiing on artificial snow, and it's really flowed down through the top 1%. A friend of mine actually has a funny expression, but I'll share it with you. He says, if you're a nurse, you'll go home with some extra latex gloves. If you're a teacher, you might go home with some extra pencils. If you're a banker, you go home with a few extra dollars. And that's the way it's worked through the Federal Reserve System. Trickle-down economics, I believe, does work when it's driven by gains in the real economy, but it doesn't work when it's created by artificial paper wealth.
So if you didn't hear, he's down for trickle-down economics, just not in the matter that it's being talked about now.
Generated by Fed Reserve policies. So I'd put the Fed back in its place. The reason real wage growth has not gone up for the bottom 99% adjusted for inflation, it's been flat. The reason why is the Federal Reserve has treated wage growth as though it's a leading indicator of inflation and try to tamp it down.
So now what he's saying is, then this is true. The Federal Reserve manipulates or changes the interest rate in order to force recession, in order to force unemployment. And he's saying this is what's causing, or is a factor what's causing the inequality. Why are you saying that instead of going directly to the issue? How is that stopping Google? How is that stopping Amazon, like Nick always says, from paying their workers each $35 an hour? How is what Vivek Ramaswamy is saying about the Federal Reserve, how does it have an effect on that? And that's what would change the income inequality if the companies were paying the workers more instead of putting the stolen labor value, which you call profits, into their pockets.
Like a game of whack-a-mole for the last 25 years. So you get what you pay for. My view is I'll put the Fed back in its place. A single mandate for the U.S. Fed. What is that? Dollar stability. Peg the dollar to commodities. That ties the hands of our government. That's a good thing. We've had our greatest GDP growth in this country before we left the gold standard. I think that's telling. So when the dollar is stable, that's how you actually help the bottom 99% in this country. That's how.
So he's a capitalist. He's an owner who's answered. This is why an owner will never answer a question about why workers are so poor. How do we get workers more money? An owner is never going to answer that question from the perspective of a worker. They're going to answer the question just how he's answering it. If owners make a lot more money, then you will get a lot more crumbs. This is essentially what he's saying.
How you see real wage growth. And I want people to understand, you hear a lot of tales, mythology, I would say, about the current economy. Let's make it simple. What's going on? Prices are going up. Interest rates, including mortgage rates to buy your home, are going up. But wages have remained flat. And so I'm not going to be the person who comes in here and tells you. And some people say, am I too pessimistic at times? I'm a realist. I'm not going to tell you the American dream is alive and well right now. It is not. It's alive and hanging on for life support. But I believe it can be. And I do think it's going to take now more than ever a CEO in the White House, somebody with fresh legs, somebody I believe from.
Let me pause. I like this comment here. So let me read it. It says, I'm having a problem again. So I got to take it down to read it again. Actually, let me put it up. And I'll read it on my screen that I have here. So just give me a second. I'll read it on my screen because I can't read it on my computer for whatever reason. I'm having a glitchy computer. But Federal Reserve is responsible for propping up our wartime economy. This takes away from being able to pay for Medicare for all, a New Deal. Yes. So what you're saying is absolutely true. But the question is talking about the income of people. So if we're having a question about what the Federal Reserve and why it's terrible and why we should get rid of it, this is what we're talking about. But earlier, my references to the Federal Reserve as far as our income, they have nothing to do with that. The Federal Reserve is not stopping Amazon from paying their workers the money. The Federal Reserve is not stopping McDonald's from paying their money. But this point of this tweet is correct, that the Federal Reserve is the one that's propping up this wartime economy, which is preventing us from paying for a bunch of things that we should be having, like universal health care. That is absolutely true. But let's get back to the video.
From the next generation to look at this differently, apply some basic economic common sense, and that starts with reform of the Federal Reserve. So thank you for that question, and welcome to the Republican side.
Let me ask you, Mr. Ramaswamy.
All right, so let's go to the next clip here. Let's start at the bottom.
She says that she's currently ready.
So let's go to this next one. This one, in the name of diversity, we completely sacrifice true diversity of thought. This will be curious. Let's see if he really talks about true diversity of thought. Let's listen. Typically, when conservative says true diversity of thought is that they have a terrible opinion and they want that to be included, like Zionists and genocide. But let's see what he means by it.
She's a professor at Drake University who teaches in the College of Business and Education. She's a Republican from West Des Moines who is undecided. Claire?
Thank you, Abby. Thank you also for spending time with our students at Drake. As a professor, I think it's super important that we get that opportunity. So thank you for spending time with them. As president, what specific strategies would you implement to promote diversity and inclusion in leadership roles within both public and private sectors? How do you plan to support the advancement of underrepresented groups, including women, in these areas?
So I'll be very honest with you. I'm going to share with you Thomas Sowell quote.
Now, that's a little bit weird. She says she's a Republican, but she's asking about diversity and inclusion, but in a positive way, which is weird to come from a Republican. But let's listen to this exchange.
That stuck with me. If you care about somebody, you tell them the truth, or at least what you believe. If you care about yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. And I have a feeling I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear on this one. So I think the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda has been abused in the name of diversity.
So let me say this. For a white supremacy culture that wants to mask that they're a white supremacy culture, you love people like Vivek Ramaswamy, you love people like Tim Scott, you love people like Clarence Thomas, Colin Powell, the Negro servant, and in this case, he's I believe he's Indian. If there's a whatever word in the Indian language that means Negro servant or coon, take that word. But for now, I'm going to call him. I'm going to just say he's what we would call a Negro servant, where you have white supremacy thought coming out of a person of color's mouth. It'll be the same thing as having misogyny speech coming out of a woman's mouth. So that's what we have here with this clown. And it's very typical with most people of color in the Republican Party. They speak to this point that I'm making.
If you tell them what they want to hear. And I have a feeling I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear on this one. So I think the diversity, equity, inclusion agenda has been abused. In the name of diversity, we have, at many of our universities, totally sacrificed diversity of thought. In the name of equity, we've perpetuated a lot of inequity and inequality of opportunity through affirmative action and otherwise. In the name of inclusion, we've created a new culture of exclusion where certain points of view aren't welcome. So especially in a university setting, what do I care about?
So let's think about what this concept is, what he's saying. So there's racism. Then you have DEI to say, since racism is pervasive, we have to implement terms that force you to not be racist. He's saying that in itself is racist. So then how do you go from a private club of 100 white people with people of color trying to enter that club? How do you go to that process? How do you do that, Vivek Ramaswamy? This is a question I would love for anybody to answer. How do you break the racist good old boy club?
Diversity of viewpoint. This is important, actually. I think diversity of viewpoint is part of what this country was built on. Well, the best way to foster diversity of viewpoint is to screen candidates for the diversity of their views, actually. Look at the board members of many universities. You're going to go through their partisan affiliation. It's not 80-20. It's going to be like 90-10 in the other direction.
You mean 90-10 Zionists? Is that what you mean? Vivek Ramaswamy is what you call a snake oil salesman. And he, like, these are the people in a sales class that I would teach that would excel in sales. I knew a guy just like him. He happened to be Indian too. I knew a guy just like him. Great at sales. And it's very, now the other guy I knew, his name was Vinny. He was a lot more genuine. I can look, it'd take me 2 seconds to spot this guy. If I came in and he was a salesperson, I would literally go, you get me somebody else. Now, as a person who taught sales, I knew when somebody was trying to fucking jit me. So when I'm coming, you immediately use an updated word. I knew when somebody was trying to swindle me. And I would immediately say, it's time for you to go to somebody else. I'm not the person for you. And I would say that about Vivek. He is clearly a salesperson. I would not trust anything this person is selling.
It's an affiliation.
And he can't turn it off. He can't turn off his salesmanship.
It's not 80-20. It's going to be like 90-10 in the other direction. that's completely at odds with the representation of this country. So do I value diversity of viewpoint? Absolutely. Do I think we're doing a good job of that? No, we're not. And it's not an accident. In the name of diversity, we've actually created a new culture of conformity. And so I think it's entirely possible to have a group of 10 people who look similar to one another, who have different views. I think it's entirely possible to have a group of 10 people who look different from one another, or who look the same as one another but have different views, or look different from one another and have the same views. And so I think the best way to screen candidates for the diversity of their experiences is to actually ask them about the diversity of their experiences. And I think the use of these racial and gender quota systems, I think, have actually created a new form of racism in the United States that otherwise would not have existed. It's sad to me. I mean, I've hired, not because I was thinking about it consciously, plenty of black women in different positions of authority in this campaign or other companies or whatever. And I can tell you, it saddens me when people look at somebody who I hired on the basis of merit and say that they only got that job because of their race or gender. That doesn't do anybody a favor. And so I think if we restore true meritocracy in this country and embrace true diversity of thought.
So if people are saying your own workers are there because of their race, and you are saying that's not the case, how are you determining when this occurs then? Because isn't anybody who you accuse of that, aren't everybody going to say, I hired them based on their quality? I don't get Vivek. He's good on maybe Ukraine and how the system is wholly bought by special interests. So he's good on those two things, and we're going to get to that clip in just a second.
Thought chances are we're actually going to have a bunch of different shades of melanin and a range of genders in different positions, but let it be not the goal. Let it just be a byproduct of actually selecting for people who are the best person for the job, and especially in a university setting, diverse viewpoints as well. That's what I'll say.
And that's a good place for us to pause. We'll be right back with more from presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy.
All right, so I think I got one more clip. Okay, that's some random.
Registered as a Democrat.
Trying to get you to like him personally, asking about his personal life and religion. That's not at all what I'm interested in. But let's go back to this one. Now, we had already watched a little bit of this, but let's watch. I'm going to play 2 minutes without stopping because I've watched this before. And I said I wanted to cover it with Nick, so I didn't watch the whole thing. But because Nick had to go, I'm covering it by myself. I'm going to play like at least 2 minutes without stopping before I give my analysis. Oh, I may have to refresh. That happens sometimes. So here we go.
Last week, you used the phrase inside job to describe what happened on January 6th. The next day, Capitol rioter Alan Hostetter highlighted your comments at his sentencing. He is going to prison for 11 years. Hostetter threatened members of Congress. He brought a hatchet, knives, pepper spray, stun batons, tactical gear to the U.S. Capitol. Are you concerned that a convicted felon like that is now promoting your comments in court?
So here's my concern, Abby. And I want to tell you guys where I'm at. If you had told me it's close to 3 years ago that January 6, 2021 happened. If you had told me 3 years ago, back when I was a biotech CEO, not steeped in this world, I was just consuming passive media, but was focused on my world of developing medicines. If you had told me that January 6 was in any way an inside job, the subject of government entrapment, I would have told you that was crazy talk. Fringe conspiracy theory nonsense. I can tell you now, having gone somewhat deep in this, it's not. I mean, the reality is this. We do have a government, first of all, we have to acknowledge, that has lied to us systematically over the last several years about the origin of COVID-19, about the Hunter Biden laptop that we were told was false by 51 CIA experts and otherwise before we now know that it was true. You can go straight down the list, the Trump-Russia disinformation collusion hoax, all of it. Now we come to January 6th. The reality is we know that there were federal law enforcement agents in that field. We don't know how many. I think it's
Mr.
shameful. And if I
Ramaswamy,
may finish this answer,
well, let me
this
just.
is really important.
I'm gonna go ahead and interrupt you here because
I know this,
that
the establishment doesn't approve of this
you're
message.
saying
I know
that there
this,
were
but
federal
we should
agents.
be able to talk about this.
You're saying that there were federal agents.
This is
in the
important to
crowd.
talk about.
You are saying there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
Yep.
There is no evidence that there were federal agents in the crowd on January 6th.
So why, before Congress, when pressed on what the number was, they didn't say there were none? They just couldn't say how many
you're
there were.
saying that that you have not seen any evidence.
So
that
we've
there
seen
were,
multiple.
and so
We've seen multiple informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked.
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this, and you can come back to the question?
Let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my
I know
question.
this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply. And I told you I was.
The way she interrupts him, not at all a coincidence. She's being told in her ear that he must be stopped by what he is about to say. And I almost feel like the way she says, I'm going to repeat the question to make sure you understand. It felt like she's giving him a signal. You need to move up off of this shit, pal. That's what it feels like to me. I'll replay it. He eventually does. He completely moves into something else. So let's see. Tell me, you hear what she says, you don't get that same vibe.
You're saying that that you have not seen any evidence.
So
that
we've
there
seen
were,
multiple.
and so
We've seen multiple informants suggesting that there were. We know people were FBI informants who were asked.
Is there any evidence?
May I just finish this, and you can come back to the question?
Let me clarify.
I know it's very uncomfortable for you.
I'm going to clarify my question.
I know this is an uncomfortable issue for many people, but we have to do the truth.
I'm going to clarify my question because I want to make sure that you understand what I'm asking.
I understand this deeply.
We are given so many signs that the establishment doesn't want certain things said, put out, narratives. We have to ask ourselves, why is that? If what he has to say is untrue, why can't he say it? The fear that they put into us that if somebody says, and I use this all the time because it's the easiest to understand, the sky is red, it's a lie. Who does that harm? Let me ask it a different way. If you say the sky is red, leave it up to the listener to figure out whether that's true or not. Not you come in and say, let me prevent you from hearing it because I'm your overseer. And I'm just saying, these things are very telling. This is why this is why certain candidates, they do town halls for it. Like, you notice they don't do town halls for everybody. And I'm sure they were kind of hesitant to do a town hall with Vivek. I'm sure they were because they already saw glimmers of some of the things that he has said.
I told you I was with you 3 years ago. I'm not there now.
Where is the evidence?
Yes.
Where is the evidence that the government had a plot, an inside job?
But no, I'm not going to tell you what an inside job is because I'm not
violence on January 6th.
I'm not going to let you put words in my mouth. I'm going to put my words in my mouth. And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that.
Where is the evidence that the government was involved in
She's asking a question.
planning
She's asking
or
a question.
executing January 6th?
So I'm going to give you hard facts. And if I may, Abby, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go through this, and you can.
Now, she asked the question. He hasn't given his answer yet. Let's see how long she lets him go.
Push back on it after that. And you can push back on that. And let's do this fairly. Why did they suppress footage of now what's been released? 200 hours of footage of shooting rubber bullets into that crowd, shooting tear gas into that crowd. You didn't see that before. You saw what the response was to that. Now you see footage coming out of actually rolling out the red carpet for Capitol Police allowing
Mr. Ramaswamy,
people in
again,
right through the front
the
door.
vast majority of that footage.
Like, this idea what the establishment is doing, they're taking the idea of what people want, which is pushback and actual journalistic integrity by challenging the person you have. What the establishment did, they're taking that and using it, because nobody says to talk over the person. You let them complete their thought, and then you follow up. What they're taking that to mean is to talk over the person for the stuff that they don't want out. And that's what happened during this entire segment on January 6th here. And it was naked, like meaning like it was so obvious.
Evidence should have been released before, Abby.
Mr. Ramaswamy, the vast majority of the footage shows
and my deeper
police
question
officers
is this.
being overrun
and I want to talk about one more
by
case.
violence.
Why is she still talking over the person who everybody came to listen to? Unless they learned from the last ones, the one that Trump was on, where they got mad at the host of the Trump town hall, where he got off all these great talking points, and they wanted her to talk over him, and they was damn near, the liberals melted down over her, damn near canceled her because she wasn't interrupting him. If you feel secure in your thoughts, you let the person finish what they're saying, and then you use your thought that you feel is so superior to challenge what they say. When you don't have the argument on your side, you talk over the person as they're talking.
Writers. That's
I'm going to give you some hard facts.
Of it shows.
So here's what entrapment is.
Cherry pick.
I'm not cherry picking.
I've never, like, I don't know what else to say. Like, this person is just fucking talking. This is insane.
Let me finish, Abby. I'm not cherry picking.
Examples.
It feels like she was given a pep talk that you better not. You saw what happened in these past town halls. You better not, because it seems unprofessional. And like when you watch her in her interviews, when she begins to talk and the person she's interviewed cuts her off, she usually stops. So for her to go against what her normal pattern of the way she interacts with interviews tells me she was told to do something opposite, and she was told to make sure it's aggressive.
To the contrary. You know who cherry picks? You know who cherry picks? The government.
That is what happened.
Why can't he cherry pick examples if that's his answer? You see what I mean? Why is that her position? Why is it your role to play as the mute button to prevent anybody from hearing what he's saying? Let's see what happens here.
Cherry picked 12 hours of footage when there was 200 hours of footage. So cherry picking was the government, not me. Release the whole thing. And let me just finish one thing too, because this is super important as a topic.
So
I think there's a civil libertarian issue of our time. Gretchen Whitmer's kidnapping. I want to be really clear on this, because
you see how odd that is. Like, it's quiet down. She stopped talking, and he begins to talk, and now you're trying to ask another question over him to say, like, to move on from this. This is why I'm telling you this. Like, I know production, and there has to be somebody in her ear that is like the producer saying, you better do this, you better make sure. There's no way. And this is very telling.
It's the same issue in the same FBI, same even part of the FBI. 3 people who were in an alleged plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer were acquitted at the end of trial because it was entrapment. That is, government agents put them up to do.
Now, do you think it's a coincidence that she's letting him talk right here? You think that's a coincidence? The part that's not about January 6th? Do you hear her interrupting him? Wait till when he gets back to January 6th.
Something they otherwise wouldn't have done. They gave him credit cards with spending limits of up to $5,000, encouraged them to buy munitions, plan something they weren't otherwise willing to plan. So much so, and I want people at home to know this, especially CNN viewers to know this, is that one of the jurors went to those defendants and apologized afterwards, gave him a hug, apologized, seeing what the government had put a poor guy up to who had to go to some Mexican restaurant across the street to get hot water. These people were exploited with credit cards up to $5,000, FBI agents, putting them up to a kidnapping plot that we were told was true but was entrapment. Same thing with the
14
Capitol Police, people
Mr.
letting them in
Ramaswamy.
freely. Many of those people then being
Mr. Ramaswamy,
charged.
look,
The government cannot put you up to do something.
Same thing with January 6th. Now she has a lot to say now.
Mr. Ramaswamy, look,
That's wrong.
I don't want to have
to the left.
I don't
She is freaking terrible. Terrible. But not surprising, it's shocking sometimes. And I think that's what you saw from me today. Just a shocking, my shock face, if you will. Trump hysteria. This is more of just a funny video of clips put together. This is not a segment. I think it's funny and interesting. Let me just play it. Yeah, it's a funny video. It's one of them. Anyway, let me just play it.
What would a second Donald Trump term look like?
Well, he cannot be the next president. Because if he is,
you can't imagine the things that he's going to do. Mexico, Canada. We can't go to Canada because eventually Canada will become annexed to America.
And shoot visitors to the White House. Yeah, that means he can shoot the First Lady.
We're going to see violence, the likes of which we didn't even see on January 6th.
Make it illegal to run against him, to throw his opponents in jail, to shut down the media.
He will make himself into the Fuhrer, and he will make everybody raise their hand and salute him.
Using martial law against the American people.
Terminate the Constitution.
To rewrite the Constitution.
Create mass internment camps.
Throw everyone into Gitmo.
Might be sent to jail, or their rights might be suppressed, especially minority groups in society.
You might have any number of things happen to you and your family.
Every one of us, our freedom, our liberty, none of us is safe.
It's going to have people around him executing against an enemy's list.
Assassinate generals.
Ordering troops to attack American citizens. Trump's very well-armed and extremist base will try to kill people.
He's going to basically burn the house down.
he will unravel the institutions of our democracy.
Draw similarities between.
Good Lord. I'm so happy people put this together, because this is what I was talking about when I covered it. Who did I cover? It was one of our guests. And I've been saying, like, oh, it was Ajamu. I was like, have you seen this just intense, like, uptick in Donald Trump hysteria in the language that they're using? And someone put all of or most of those clips together. But you hear the adjectives, you hear the language. It's like, who is this? Mussolini? Hitler?
Mussolini and Hitler.
Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini.
Makes Donald Trump even more dangerous.
Wants to take away your vote. Senate and the House are immediately going to be paralyzed.
People will begin in their minds to censor themselves. They might say, well, maybe I shouldn't say this.
This is the end of democracy.
I think that could be the end of our democracy.
But democracy is dead if Trump is reelected.
Cozy up to Putin that democracy will be at risk.
The absolute destruction of the Justice Department as we know it.
The Justice Department could be entirely transformed.
I'm really concerned about that.
Every person who was associated with the attempted coup elevated in the administration.
If he's reelected, he will curb transgender rights.
And the rule of law.
Arrest political opponents.
To persecute, not prosecute, but persecute his enemies.
Take a wrecking ball to the rule of law. He's going to make the law. Everyone else will have to follow.
A vote for Donald Trump may mean the last election that you ever get to vote in.
To go after the independent and free parts of American civic life.
He would tear down our institutions.
Purge the government of employees.
Department by department effort to weaponize the powers of the government.
To use the military to quash protests.
Ridding the government of all democratic safeguards.
Junking American democracy as we have always known it.
That he would try to stay in office beyond a second term. That he would never leave office.
There's no question.
Trump is reelected, he won't leave.
Donald Trump will never leave office voluntarily.
And what that means is that everybody who wants us to remain a republic has to put every other thing aside and work together urgently right now to stop that from happening.
Very scary, huh? But that, I mean, Trump hysteria, and that comes from the African reporter. I always refer to him in that way, but his name is Simon, chief White House correspondent at Today News Africa in Washington. Great, and he's very conservative leaning, I must say. Let's go here and view a couple of quote tweets and see if there's any viral ones here. Here's Jimmy Dore. They'll say absolutely anything. They'll do absolutely anything to get you to vote Biden, except do anything to improve the lives of the people they want votes from. Let me make that smaller so you can see the whole thing. That's Jimmy Dore. Let's see if there's anybody else. Oh, he made another comment. I guess I'll read these two and then be done. So the establishment is in full meltdown. Most of these things they claim Trump will do, they have already done. They've definitely killed democracy decades ago. U.S. is an oligarchy or plutocracy. And they've politicized and destroyed the Justice Department to go after Donald Trump. I absolutely agree with that. In repeated transparently political prosecutions, every accusation they make is a confession. And that is spot on, Jimmy Dore. And like I said, that was not a segment. I just wanted to play that video. I think there's another video that's not a segment I just want to play. I'm clearing all these out since I have some time. Wife is home, so I didn't have, she picked up the daughter, so I didn't have to go do that. Or working from home. She's not off. She's working from home. Trump hysteria. What was, the other thing I wanted to show you, a quick video. I showed that one. Biden apologist. Is it this one? It might be this one. Oh, listen to this one. So this is Democratic baffled. It says Democratic pollster baffled by progressives not supporting Biden. So this is something Belcher. I believe his name is something Belcher, but he comes on to be the black voice. He's a pollster to be, black people this. He's going to even mention something like that, but that's not the point. It's not to speak from the black point of view, but he's baffled that progressives aren't like falling in line for Joe Biden. Baffled progressives aren't falling in line. I think I have it now. I'm going to put this banner up and then I'm going to play this video. This is just for marking purposes here. You may have seen this already. This is from the Chris Hayes show. And here we go with this clip from the Chris Hayes show. It's a doozy.
Hey, Chris, I am completely baffled. I am. I'm baffled by the lack of an engagement from progressives around this good economic news. So there's two things I want to say this. One is we've been oversold on the simplicity of it's just the economy, because it's not just the economy.
Correct.
Voters are a lot more complicated in that there are multiple variables, and so many voters don't even make most of the sense of their lives from an economic transaction. And by the way, the young voters, which we're going to talk about here shortly, that are most problematic for Biden are showing us that it's simply not the economy. But also what I think is happening, Chris, is there is this struggle within progressive circles, and it's driving me absolutely insane because the Republicans, as you showed, do not have this same conversation. It is, well, people don't feel like the economy is good, so we can't talk about the economy. And I absolutely want to scream, because Republicans don't have that problem, Chris. The economy is, people aren't going to feel it unless we're actually telling them and showing them, right? We do have to declare that it's morning in America and that things are good, are getting better, and we have to go out there and start selling it and promoting it. We can't just sit back and wait for people to start feeling it, or it's going to be too late.
Yeah.
So
can I say something about that?
I'm baffled by what's happening.
I sort of understand it.
I'm baffled by that strategy, that you tell people what you're experiencing is not true. It is actually a good economy. Yeah, you can't afford rent and gas, but the economy is still doing good. I'm baffled by that point of view and that strategy that you have. And let's listen to Chris.
Because I think there's this part of it is that, you know, if you're coming from a progressive perspective, you think that the baseline of American capitalism is cool, capricious, and often predatory, which I do. I'm on the record saying that. And so that's true under any president. Like the basics, the level of the social safety net we have, the basic ways that capitalism operates in this country is too harsh and too unequal, and people get screwed at the bottom too much. And that is true president to president to president, right? But in terms of what changes between presidents, the other thing I would say about this is from a left progressive perspective, it's not just, oh, the stock market's up. It's that the biggest gains to wages have been the bottom 40% of the wage distribution. It's that the biggest.
So this is what they're saying. So they're trying every which way to talk you out of your analysis that the economy is not doing well for you. Because wages are up. What does wages being up have to do? How does wages being up fix the cost of food? Fix the cost of rent? So wages are up, but still not adequate. So what is the point that you're saying? You see what I'm saying? It's like they want you to be happy over crumbs and not just a little happy. They want you to be hop, skipping, and jumping happy over crumbs. And they can't understand why you're not giving them credit.
Outpouring of labor organizing, labor militancy, and strikes in 30 years has happened under this president and with his support.
He's saying, I don't understand.
Labor militancy and strikes in 30 years has happened under this president and with his support and with.
I'm gonna rewind. He's gonna say this. There's a couple of lines back to back. So let's listen.
Outpouring of labor organizing, labor militancy, and strikes in.
My bad. I always don't rewind this far back enough. Here we go.
Like the basics, the level of the social safety net we have, the basic ways that capitalism operates in this country is too harsh and too unequal, and people get screwed at the bottom too much. And that is true president to president to president, right? But in terms of what changes between presidents.
So now he's addressing what changes between presidents. So he's saying, so like he's talking against his own argument. So he already established capitalism, established sort of a baseline of poverty. Those people are grandfathered in president to president. He's acknowledging that. Those are the people that's saying the economy's bad. Chris? The people that you just moved to the side and said those are grandfathered in president, those are the people who are saying the economy is doing terrible.
The other thing I would say about this is from a left progressive perspective, it's not just, oh, the stock market's up. It's that the biggest gains to wages have.
So he's saying, analyzing this from a left perspective, this is the reason why we should be up on the economy. Let's see what he lists here.
In the bottom 40% of the wage distribution.
So the increase in the mild or the milquetoast increase in wages has been at the bottom 40%. So the bottom 40%, look at it this way. The bottom 40% needs $100 to survive. Let's just keep it a nice round number. And the bottom 40% right now it only has $10 towards that. So they're doing 10. Now you get 5. He's saying you should be jumping for joy because you went from 10 to 5. That's an increase, but you need $100 to get what you need. Do you get it with that? So why wouldn't you still describe the economy as bad because you still don't have the $100 that you need to make the purchase? They're saying because you have a little more money towards that, you should be jumping for joy happy, and that is completely absurd.
It's that the biggest outpouring of labor organizing, labor militancy, and
that's against your point. the biggest outpouring of labor organizing means that the economy is not doing well, means that wages aren't going up fast enough. Isn't that what that means?
Strikes in 30 years has happened under this president and with his support and with
his support. You see the whitewashing? If you're listening to this progressive, and this is what we just say, the professional management progressive, look what they're telling workers. Look what he's saying to workers. This is great for you guys. And the audacity for him to say, with the support of this president, is just a lie. That's exaggeration. That is such an exaggeration that that's a lie. How you can say that after he broke the railroad strike is beyond me. A person from the left. Now, if you're a conservative, if you're a capitalist, you're going to skip over that part. It's beyond me that a person who's quote unquote left is not including that in what they're saying.
30 years has happened under this president and with his support and with the support of the NLRB. It's that inequality across almost every metric has shrunk considerably over the 2 years. So it's not
inequality across the board has shrunken considerably. Inequality has shrunken considerably over 2 years, is what he said. I saw somebody say, get ready for Trump. That's it. If this is your strategy, outright lies that can be challenged real time.
Not just, okay, the big headline numbers are good, but, you know, from a left or progressive perspective, it's not getting, no, actually from that perspective, it's.
No, because he said, he said the NLRB, what the other pseudo NATO left has been trying to sell us on Joe Biden. NLRB, no, these are really good shit. No, I'm sorry, sir, but you're talking about a crumb of a crumb of a crumb. So you're talking about a crumb is this side, is magnified, half of that shit, then another half. A crumb of a crumb are the things you're listing as left perspectives.
It's actually surprisingly good.
No, it's remarkably well. And
that is the same talking point that Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball said. That's when in the debate with Bree, that is the exact thing they said. They said it's not just a little bit; it's a lot.
And look, I was just in focus groups last night, and Chris, no one knows. You know, I was in focus groups with sporadic voters who are not, well, again, will never vote for Donald Trump, but are not happy with Joe Biden and are holding back from Joe Biden. And they bring up the student loan stuff. It's like he made us promises about student loan. There's zero context around student loans. About Republicans actually took him to court to stop it. Oh, and by the way,
that's interesting.
He's been able to actually let go of $130-some billion in student debt, so forgive it. And there's no context or understanding of it. So I have to press up my progressive friends. Like, we've got to start doing a better job of messaging, and we can't wait for 2 or 3 months out from the election cycle, as sometimes we often do. These younger voters are upset. They don't think anything's happening. They don't think that the Biden administration and Democrats in Congress are paying attention to their issues or even fighting for them. And the story that you've laid out, Chris, is
we think they're not doing any of that. Not that they didn't pass the $15 minimum wage like they promised. Not that they didn't bring Medicare for all to a vote. We just think it. So apparently there's, money dropping from the trees, and my fridge is overflowing with food. My bank account, I go to the ATM, money just jumping out of the bank account, and I have no clue. I just need to be told, and then somehow I'm going to see all the gut stuff around me. It's completely absurd. When they mean by messaging, they mean propagandize the people. That's what they're talking about. He's talking about we need a harder propaganda game here. And this is not going to cut it. That is literally, in my opinion, what he is saying here, and I think we can cut it here. That's the end of the clip, and that is the end of this stream. I'll read the I think I got 1 or 2 new super chats, and then I'll read those super chats, and then we'll get out of here. Thank you for watching on this Friday. We're not always here on Fridays. Sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. There is our website, and let me read the super chats now, or our website, scrolling at the bottom, and then at the top is our merchandise website. It's not our regular website. So you got to click on RBN merch, which is one of the hyperlinks when you go to revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com. But you see Nick sporting a lot of this. He has this black logo shirt. He has the gray one. He has this hoodie here. He also has he has the red hoodie. So Nick has this red hoodie here. I think Rome said he's going to get black. I think he said he's going to get black or gray. I'm leaning towards green or gray. I have a lot of gray stuff clothes, so this will be the most smart one for it to go match with the most stuff I have will be this one. But check out some of our stuff here. Go if you want some of our merch. He also has this shirt. He has the black one, and he also has this, what is this called? Gray? Yeah. He also has this gray. I'm not sure what color I'm going to get. That's if you want t-shirts. They also have sweatshirts. So sweatshirts here, same logo. You can get that also in red, or what is that? Like a green, forest green. So yeah. All right. So let's read the super chats. Oh, got one. I think it's just one. No, two new super chats here. Well, let me read this one. Let me see. Yeah. Seems like progressive Dems are see the world through their university education and psychotherapy. Both are liberal capitalist institutions. That is absolutely spot on. John Freeze, a regular, and thank you for the $9.99 super chat. And this one here, I think I may have showed this, but another. Oh no, this is the third one. Oh wow! So we have 3 gifts. So here's a third gift of membership. Black Molly Tube, I think that's how you say it. Mallow Tube, Black Mallow Tube, gifted 1 RBN membership, and I'll shout out the other ones. There's another gifted RBN membership. Here's another gifted RBN membership. I think we had 3. Oh, actually no, 3 there, and then another 5. So we have 8 gifted memberships today. Let me make sure it's only 8. So we had 8 gifted memberships today. Thank you so much to all that gifted those memberships and all of the super chats. And again, scrolling at the bottom, revolutionaryblackoutnetwork.com is where you can go and reach our merch store. The other thing is check to make sure you are subscribed. YouTube, because ever since October 8th in our coverage, they have been mounting they've upped their de-amplification on us. So they're doing things like hiding our videos. They're doing things like not showing that we're live. They're doing things like removing subscribers. We're getting about 10 subscribers every single day that they're removing or more. So check to make sure you weren't unsubscribed. On 4 of my other YouTube channels, all 4 I was unsubscribed, and one of which I was unsubscribed 3 times. Like I unsubscribed, subscribe, unsubscribe again, subscribe, like 2 days in a row. So make sure you check all of that. I believe that is it. I don't have anything else. This stream went a little bit longer, but I'm going to be off for the weekend. Christmas shopping this weekend, daughter's birthday celebration this weekend. So that is what I will be doing. A lot of family stuff. So thank you for watching today. Make sure you check out our website. It's scrolling right there at the bottom. I'm going to leave you and wish you a good weekend. Thank you for watching.